Good morning. Yay, welcome. We are excited to have all of you at the second annual Women's Summit. I see many familiar faces, and many of you were here last year, so thank you so much for coming back. We got amazing feedback, and so we're doing it again. And there's some familiar faces. Hopefully you have already looked at the program that you got when you came in. Kudos to Meredith Bombello and Andrick and Associates who made the program once again. Like last year, we will not be sharing everybody's full bio as they come up to the stage in the interest of time. So make sure that you take a look at the program and read through there. So on behalf of myself and my team, I'm welcoming all of you to International Women's Day. My name is Beth Green, and I am Director of Private Banking for Gulfside. I want you to just give me one indulgence before I bring Dr. Holbrook up to the podium. So someone asked me the other day, why did you do the Women's Summit, or why did we decide to do the Women's Summit? And I gave a very quick response around how awesome women are and celebrating all of their uniqueness, which is absolutely accurate. But upon reflection, so I had a friend who posted something on Facebook related to, not mentioning any names, related to she has many more guy friends than she does girlfriends. And I started reading and I was like, that is 100% me. Growing up, I played lots of sports and I just related to the guys better. They let me, I was very competitive. They let me be me. I was, sporty, aggressive maybe a little bit, etc. They related to me a little better. And then as my career started and took off, I found the same thing. At the top, there was a finite number of women, and I felt like it was super competitive and aggressive, and women, didn't really want me at the dance. So I gravitated once again to the guys and formed friendships with them and kind of avoided the women. And it wasn't until I met my amazing mentor and friend, Margaret Callahan. Some of you might remember, she worked at SunTrust when I was there. And through her, I learned that I could be strong, confident, successful, and supportive of all women, and even celebrate and assist them to achieve success. And it doesn't dim my light by doing that. And so I started to look at things differently. I think I became open to, opening myself up to strong women friendships. And I also had a few personal setbacks where my dear, dear women friends stepped in and helped me. And so I now recognize the power of women, supporting and helping other women, and to be that joining force and celebrating all of our awesomeness. And so that, my friends, is why we are doing the Women's Summit, for all of you and all of your awesomeness. So just one quick little side note. Today is not possible without some folks, so I just want to do a quick recognition. First and foremost is my business partner who lets me be me every day, appreciates on most days what I bring to the table. Seriously, he's amazing. He's one of the smartest humans I know. I say that all the time. He's our Director of Wealth, Jared Motzenbecker. And another notable person who's standing in the back is my dear, dear friend, Jay Riley. Jay. So Jay, last year, if you remember, I called him. I just wanted some space. And he's like, space? Heck no, we're going to do this together. And he jumped in and helped us make it awesome. And this year was no different. And I cannot thank him enough. And I am honored to call him my friend. He is amazing. And he jumped in. And no holds barred, and it was in the middle of a transition for him personally to a new job. So I cannot thank you enough once again. Go Bulls, right? And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Caitlin Kramer. Is she in here? Caitlin. And Maury Newmer and Kelly Bush from USF for all that they did working tirelessly. It does take a village, and I have a village that supports me as well. So Tim Self, Jenny Lanham, Christy Moulton, and Gianni Valenti are all part of the Gulfside Wealth team, and we're there always to support. So I appreciate you guys. I already mentioned Meredith, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you so much for the programs, Andrick and Associate. They're amazing, and we just appreciate every year we come to you and you make it happen. Tireless effort of, reviewing, and your dad was great. The tweaks he made on it, I appreciate, so tell him that as well. All right, so we're going to have multiple panels this year. We have a keynote, and we have a TED Talk with Dr. Lisa Penny coming up. If time permits, we will absolutely give you the chance to ask questions, but just know that at the end of the day, most of the speakers are hanging around, so you'll have an opportunity both at break and at the end to have a conversation with them. So just, if you don't get your question answered, just know that we appreciate you being here, and you will have a chance to talk with the speakers for sure. All right, so I've chatted enough. Without further ado, I'm turning it over to Dr. Karen Holbrook. She's the Regional Chancellor at USF Sarasota Manatee, and she's going to say a few words.
Thank you, Beth, and I have to agree with you about men being so important in our lives. And I can say honestly that throughout my whole career, the most mentors I had were men. All of the mentors I had were men, actually. And when you think about women, and you mentioned women being very competitive, that's part of the reason, I think, is women need to get over being competitive with other women and help each other. And I think most of us know that by now, but that's something growing up through our careers that is pretty evident. So let me just say anyway, good morning and welcome to International Women's Day. And this is also part of Women's History Month, as everybody knows. So this is a great day. This is a day that was started actually very early in the 20th century. So it's not a new thing. It's worldwide, which is very interesting. This is only our second event, and I'm sure we're going to go on with many more of these, because I will tell you that after last year's event, this was probably the most talked about event on our campus. Everybody said, did you know, did you hear, were you there about this event? So I think it's going to be the same thing again today. And again, Beth, thank you, and Gulfside Wealth for helping us, and Women's Leadership in Philanthropy. Is Lauren here? Not yet. Okay. Okay, after the break. Well, anyway, thank you to Women's Leadership in Philanthropy, who are also sponsoring this event. So this is a day that's set aside to acknowledge women's social, economic, cultural, political advances across the world, and not just to acknowledge them, but to celebrate women's achievements, promoting gender equality, inspiring women to continue breaking barriers and reaching their full potential, to raise the awareness. This day is to raise the awareness of the challenges that women still face. And I think we can all think about the challenges in our own jobs and what we're doing. One of them that stands out most clearly so often is salary equity. This is something that, in spite of the fact there's a lot of growth and there's a lot of advancement in that area, it still exists. And I could give you some examples, but I won't. So the theme for the International Women's Day worldwide is choose to challenge. And I think that's a good thing to think about. What are we challenging? What are the things that we want to change? What are the challenges that we want to make? And what are the ones that we want to push in our own environment to bring more awareness, more equality, more understanding of the impact that women make? So we've chosen the theme, and it's all over the front of your program, of influence, inspire, and impact. Because this is exactly how women contribute to their businesses, to their organizations, to their community, and to their colleagues. And we're going to hear about them today as we learn about their influence. We will probably hear things that inspire us to take away, and I hope that's the case. I know it was last year. And we also want to continue to make an impact in so many different ways. So I'm very proud to say that the University of South Florida has reached number 2 in position, number 22. I like 2 better, but it's not true. So I'll have to say the honest thing. In the Forbes list of places for women, we're actually 22, but still, to be on the Forbes list, that's a good deal. So I'm inspired about that. And then you think about USF, and every one of the campuses is led by a woman. I'm here. Christian Hardegree is at St. Pete, and of course our president is Rhea Law. We did let a man sneak in as provost, and we have a new provost, and that's okay. And we have many of our vice presidents are women. Communications and marketing, for example, HR, facilities, but a number of other vice presidents. So women are making it it's actually 64% at the University of South Florida overall. 64% of the women are in high-level administrative positions. So this is really pretty, we're pretty proud of that. I think, do I have a second page? I do somewhere. No, I forgot the second page, but that's okay. So let me just talk a little bit about us, about the University of South Florida and the impact that we're making and what's exciting. If you look out the window, and I'm glad we aren't hearing anything yet, but if you look out the window, you will see 2 big, I don't know what you call them, they're machines that dig in the earth. And anyway, they're out there digging up the earth because our first new building since this one that was built 17 years ago, and this small room is what we have. That new building is our residence hall student center. So our students are going to move in. So exciting. So our students are going to move in to an area that has 200 beds, and they're really nice rooms, apartments. And then it's the student center, so they will have offices for students, student government, all kinds of student activities. And on the main floor is a very large cafe or dining hall, bookstore, convenience store, and then a wonderful ballroom that will hold 300 people. So instead of being in here with 150 people, we can double the size. Next year, no, it isn't next year, I'm sorry. In 2024, we open in fall of 2024, and we can use the large ballroom for this event and so many other events that are important for students, but most important for community as well. So, but that's not it. What's exciting about this building is it's not the only one. We're also building, going off the other end of this building, you will see hopefully very soon, maybe not very soon, but hopefully soon. Depends on how much money we raise and how fast we raise it and how agreeable the legislature is to also giving us new funds. We do have $5 million to do planning and design of the new building that's going on that end, and that is the nursing STEM building. That's really exciting. We got money from the legislature last year, and that will be not just nursing and not just STEM. Let me emphasize a little bit more about that. The nursing is going to expand into health sciences broadly. So instead of just nursing, we are talking with the College of Nursing and with others in USF Health to talk about adding physical therapy, occupational therapy, palliative medicine, and even put a clinic in, and we're working with a commercial hospital association to build that clinic, or to build a partnership, so that we have a very different kind of a health sciences along with nursing, and nursing is obviously going to be very important in that building. The STEM part is going to be typical. It's going to be biology, physics, and chemistry, the kinds of things that we have not been able to do on this campus because we don't have any labs. But we go to Moat Marine Lab for those classes. All of those will come back, and those labs will also be used by the STEM group. And the STEM group is going to be used by the STEM group and the health sciences group. And we're adding aerospace engineering, which is really exciting because across the street is the airport, and the airport is going to actually have a campus. They're going to have a K through 12 program, and they're going to have an A&P technical program for people who will want to learn air plant and power, what is it? A&P. Never mind, it's A&P. I usually know this, but it's the technical program of taking care and repairing airplanes, and that's a very important program. But it is definitely more technical than the kinds of things we're doing. But we're putting modules with it so that the people that come out of that program, which is a 1 to 2 year program, will actually have some college courses to go along with it in things like cybersecurity, logistics, and a variety supply chain and things that make sense. So they will have a leg up when they go for a job. And then our aerospace engineering program will be partnered with the airport. And we're actually recruiting it's hard for me to believe this, but we're recruiting our first faculty member along with USF Engineering, College of Engineering in aerospace engineering. So this campus is just going to change remarkably and rapidly. So the 2 new buildings will make a huge difference academically, socially, politically, in a variety of ways. But this is about community, and this meeting today is about community. We really care about the students being prepared for the community, and we care about the way we all influence our community and participate in our community, because this is an amazing, amazing place to live, and for each one of us to provide impact. And this is a group of people who are here to provide impact and already are. So I think I will stop talking and go on with the program, because this is going to be a very exciting day. And I just again want to welcome all of you for being here, for sharing with us, and just being a part of this great day. I know we'll all leave saying, this was a great meeting, because last year that's what they said, and this year can only be better. So thank you very much for being with us. I don't know what I won't take yours.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't bring all mine.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Holbrook. Let's get this party started. And welcome Chantel Norman to the stage. Woohoo! Back by popular demand. She is a celebrity. If you remember last year, her energy and excitement was contagious, and we said we aren't doing this event without you. She really needs no introduction. She brings it every day in the best way. She's beautiful inside and out. A social influencer and overall amazing woman, Chantel Norman.
Thank you, Beth. And, I appreciate being here today. I know you guys are expecting me to go out of control and be exciting, but today I want to get you a little uncomfortable. So can you play this song for me right quick? And, there we go. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to look at these words, because this is one of my favorite songs right here to sing, because it really resonates with me and some of the things that I go through and some of the challenges that I've been through in life. So I'm going to sing it, and I want you guys to read it. So if you want to, you can just close your eyes. It's going to make you a little uncomfortable when you sing the song. Every time I sing it, I start crying. So if you see me start crying, it's because I'm resonating to it. And some of you might know it. I said 5 in the morning, I wake up to fight for my earnings. The fear in my mind is a warning. Pray to the one you rely in. I've been wondering all day. I tried to be fine, but I can't be. The noise in my mind wouldn't leave me. I tried to get by, but I'm burning. And behind my mind it runs. All these thoughts have troubled me. Fighting to give up my pain. Fighting to be in my lane. My mind running to the other side. When it's time to live my life, then it tries to take me out. Tell you what I need right here. I really need time now. I need a free mind now. I really need mine now. I need to free my mind now. I really need time now. I really need mine now. I really need my mind now, yeah. This is the peace that you cannot buy. Send me a love that you cannot mix. One is the joy that you cannot waste, and the other one price that you cannot fix. This is the peace that you cannot buy. Find in a way when you cannot see. Man with distance if you cannot pray. I need to find release. But be mine, my mind it runs. All these thoughts have troubled me. Fighting to give up my pain. Fighting to be in my lane. My mind running to the other side. When it's time to live my life, then it tries to take me out. Tell you what I need right here. I really need time now. I need a free mind now. I really need mine now. I need to free my mind now. I really need time now. I need a free mind now. I really need my mind now. Yeah. You can turn it down just a little bit. So back in high school, year 2000, at 15 years old, I was on a roll, y'all. A, B, C student, to be honest. Varsity cheerleader, ran track, led the school chorus, played basketball, played baseball, even played softball. And you know what? I even did a little bit of flag football. I was one of the ones that Beth said most of my friends were guys. Still to this day, one of my best friends is a guy because that's who I related with. I was very challenging. I love challenges, and I love being pushed to another level. Everything at that time, I was on track, y'all. I was on track. So then in September of 2000, around 8 p.m., I sat in this small room where I know you all have been before. I sat and I thought, and y'all probably have too. You probably cried. You've probably laughed. You probably released a lot of toxins. I'm talking about the bathroom, y'all. The bathroom, yes. But I sat on the toilet over an hour crying with 4, I guess I should call them devices, in my hand. They was cheap. I like Dollar General, y'all. Dollar General is my place. I got these 4 devices from Dollar General. They was $1 each. I sat on the toilet staring at these devices. I was scared. I was shaking. My legs was tingling. You know how when you sit, I don't know if it was tingling because I was scared or I was uncomfortable or if I've just been sitting on the toilet for so long. You know how when you're sitting there so long, your legs start, I know I'm not the only one, your legs start feeling numb. But listen, I was staring at these 4, I'm calling Dollar General DG if that's all right. I'm staring at these 4 DG pregnancy tests. With every last one of them displaying positive. I would never forget how that lowercase t, or shall I say that positive symbol, sucked every breath out of me. I left the bathroom and curled up in my bed. My mom came in like, what's wrong? So I pointed at those DG tests. And while I can go on and on about how I felt, what my mom was saying, how I was thinking about my self-esteem, how uncomfortable I was, that's when I realized the most shocking event, as I should call it, was the greatest amount of discomfort that I had ever felt. It was that uncomfortable situation, that discomfort from my ordered life. And what I mean by ordered life is I was in high school at the time. So wake up, eat breakfast, go to school, go play my sports. After sports, go home, do homework, shower, eat, go to bed. That was my ordered life. But what that did, I didn't realize that this situation, this uncomfortable situation, was going to change my ordered life. I was comfortable in my ordered life. I thought I had every single thing going on. I was one of the most popular. Even one year, I even won like most likely to be a superstar. Really. But that situation right there really changed my life. And I know a lot of you are probably like rolling your eyes or saying in the back of your head, you had to change your life because you was becoming a parent, yes. And each and every one of you may say that, but when you live in a small town, I'm originally from Lexington, North Carolina, less than 1,000 people that live there. And as people would say, it was a redneck town. I got to do this. It was a redneck town. So I was this only little black girl in high school that was pregnant. And you know who my biggest bullies were? The teachers. The teachers were my biggest bullies. I was verbally abused throughout high school when I found out I was pregnant. They would tell me I wouldn't amount to anything. I wouldn't go to college. I would be another welfare mom. I'm going to have a deadbeat dad. All of these things. So when you have people that you look up to telling you these things, it starts messing with your mental state. Your mental state. So with this, it caused me to start having thoughts about having an abortion. Like, I'm uncomfortable being in this situation. I don't want, to go through this. So luckily, I have a strong support system, which is my parents and my family. So they talked me off, that little ledge. But I realized I was comfortable living that ordered life that I described to you all. I was comfortable living that ordered life, but it was the most uncomfortable situation that made me the woman that I am today, as you can see. So pretty quickly, I had to start motivating myself and to start this new journey as the one teenage mom throughout my small little hometown. I went through so many complications in school. Again, I was bullied by quite a few of my teachers. A lot of my friends became, they didn't want to talk to me anymore. They was like, "Oh, you a mom now, so you don't have time for us." And I went through a lot. So it caused me to have problems in school. I used to have to go to the hospital because of high blood pressure or dehydration or just because I was so stressed out. When you're pregnant, they want you to always be calm. But it's hard being pregnant in high school. So finally my doctor was like, "You know what? We're going to take you out of high school. In your third trimester, we're going to put you in a small community college." And I went to a community college, and it was for, women that were pregnant. And I had the opportunity, I went through it, and I had the opportunity to graduate early, a year early from my class. And I said, "You know what? I don't want to graduate early. I want to wait and graduate with my class the year of 2003 because I want to show them, especially the teachers, that, yeah, y'all can say whatever you want to say. Yes, I was in the most uncomfortable situation, but I got this. I can make it. I can do this." So what I did walk with my class. I always wanted to be that college girl that stayed in the dorm and lived the college life and go and be on the sororities, I used to be a step team. I wanted to do all that. That's what I wanted to do. But I still went to college. I had to go online. But I had the opportunity. I wasn't able to do what everybody else did, but this was the best opportunity for me I love music, to focus on music, to focus on myself, to focus on bettering my life for myself, my family, and for my son's sake. So people today call me the CDO. They always say, there goes Chantel V. Norman, the CDO. And the CDO is the Chief Disruptive Officer. That's what they call me. Why? Because I speak my mind. I hate seeing people down other people when they see that person is in an uncomfortable situation. One of my favorite speakers is Lovey Jones. I don't know if you guys know Lovey Jones, but she's amazing. 3 things stuck out to me, and this is what made me become more and more, made me speak out more. She said these 3 things whenever she speaks out. Did you mean it? Can you defend it? And did you say it with love? So when I see people belittling somebody else because they're in an uncomfortable situation, I'm going to lift that uncomfortable person up and say, "Hey, you can do this no matter what nobody else say." That's why everywhere I go, my fingernails are long. Today, my hair was long. Yesterday, y'all, if y'all see me, my hair came right here. It had blonde under the bottom, black at the top. Today, I'm bright. I wanted to be very sophisticated today, and I said, why not? Why do I want to do that? Well, I want to be my most comfortable self in an uncomfortable situation. So one thing I want to leave with y'all, and then I always go back home, and I love to go find the teachers and the people that downed me, because I always just like to walk past them look at me. I'm the opposite of what y'all thought I was 22 years ago. And today, y'all, my son just turned 22. So 22 years ago when I was pregnant, look at me, I'm the opposite of what all y'all said. Every last one of y'all. So yes, at that time I was uncomfortable. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. But I made it, and I want you to know that you can too. So I want to encourage you all to take the leap of faith, especially in uncomfortable situations. I want you to get a little more comfortable being uncomfortable. Let me give you 3 examples, and then I'm out of your way. Rosa Parks. She sat in the back of a bus where she wasn't supposed to sit. Do y'all know how uncomfortable that is? How uncomfortable she was at that time? But look, she made a big impact on the world. Harriet Tubman. They call her the Moses of the people. Look how many people she helped free. That's an uncomfortable situation. One more is one of my favorite people, Miss Ruth Bader. She fought against gender discrimination and unified the liberal bloc of the courts. Think about how uncomfortable at the highest courts she had to be, but to make a statement for people to hear. So again, I want to encourage you all to get a little more comfortable being in uncomfortable situations and be it at your best self. Don't hurt nobody. If you lift everybody up, I like to lift people up. You never know what people are going through. It can be that one word. You should look at the person beside you and say, hello, how you doing today? Exactly. Just like something simple like that can inspire somebody and really lift them up. Get uncomfortable. Even if you don't know the person, just get uncomfortable. Y'all, sometimes I just go sit at the bar to see who I'm going to sit beside just so I can have a conversation. Yeah, it's uncomfortable because I don't know who it is. But when you realize the person that you talk, you never know what they're going through. You can inspire them. So get uncomfortable in uncomfortable situations. And I want to thank you guys for your time. And I want to say happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
Jared, yeah. Chantel. We have a little something for Chantel. Not anywhere close to as awesome as you are, but we just want to say thank you. I love her energy. I was just telling her coworker, I'm like, how do you work with her every day? She's so awesome. And every day, Erin said, it's fabulous, and you walk in and it's a surprise, and you don't know what her hair is going to look like, what she's wearing. I was like, oh, that's fun. We don't get to do that at the bank. The bank's a little too conservative. Chantel's day job is at Visit Sarasota, so what better advocate for our city and inspiration than Chantel? Thank you again. Now we are bringing to the stage our first panel of fabulous women. I'm going to just start out, ladies, as I'm going to just give a brief, so make your way as I call out. Poonam Manny is the owner of Tandoor Restaurant, and when I asked her favorite quote, she said, "Nothing is impossible. The word itself says I'm possible," and that's Audrey Hepburn, and Mother Teresa is her idol. Vicki Cleaves has put the almond in almond milk. Her glasses of milk contain at least 20 almonds per glass versus the competition, and we have some out there, so hopefully you had a chance. Her favorite quote is from a French author and poet: "A rock pile ceases to be a rock pile the moment a single man contemplates it, bearing within him the image of a cathedral." Welcome, Vicki. Celiana Pluvos, did I say it right? And her sister Gladys Jean brought to us the fabulous breakfast. They're from the Barnyard. Recent mothers and new business owners. And then last but certainly not least is our moderator, Kelly Kipnis. I almost said Shane Kipnis. Kelly works in the financial service industry, but also started her smoked fish business with her husband. They showcase the dip at various farmers markets around the state before selling the business. Kelly gets her inspiration and her quote from her mom, who always said, "You will always have a bad day every now and then, but down with the sun goes that energy, and tomorrow brings a new." She loved and views sunsets and sunrises with such a deep meaning and embraces it with signs of relief and renewal. So welcome, Kelly. All right, let's get this party started. I am so honored to be here today and moderate this panel, and I'm really eager to hear how these women have succeeded, because Beth was kind when she said we sold the business. We hung up the towel. So I'm eager to hear this today. As we all know, entrepreneurs are the founders and creators of new products and services, and you were all chosen for this panel because you each touch the food industry in some capacity, whether it's by opening a restaurant, a food truck, or developing a better product. And while many of us understand this business is not for the faint at heart, I'm telling you, it is not for the faint of heart. We really want to get to the heart of what makes you tick, that extra little something that makes you different and helps you keep going. What is that it factor that has driven you to succeed when so many others have hung up the towel? We know your success did not happen in a vacuum, and each of you has faced unique challenges on your journey to success. So what I'd like to do is start there and ask you each to share one of those defining or pivotal moments that, that could be inspirational to us. So why don't we start at the end with Ciliana and Gladys?
You could start. Go for it. Okay. Thank you all so much for having us. The most pivotal moment for the business wise or just in general?
In general, that got you where you are today.
So growing up, this is my sister. So growing up, we grew up in a house of entrepreneurs. My grandma, which we didn't later identify as an entrepreneur, she was a foreigner into the U.S. and then she would watch people's children. She was a house masseuse because she never operated with a license or anything, but we never actually identified it as being an entrepreneur. So I think the pivotal moment for myself, was when we actually started the Barnyard and I began to connect the dots, because sometimes you don't understand what you're taking in or what's happening until you're in it. So it wasn't until we came with the Barnyard, we grew the concept, we're working, that then was the moment that clicked in my head that I've been watching my mom do entrepreneurship, my grandma, this person all around me. So I would say that was my pivotal moment for myself.
Great answer. And I'm Ciliana. We're partners of the same business. For me, the pivotal, actually, the other day I was listening or kind of reflecting back on my life, just trying to figure out where entrepreneurship kind of became something where I feel like I wanted to go into and explore. It's actually when I was little, and I think that was a pivotal moment that I didn't know was a pivotal moment. And my mom used to come home with the groceries, and I used to play cashier. And I used to take all the groceries and go, beep, 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 beep. And that was one thing. And I was like, well, what did that mean? Like, I was so fascinated with and I was like, well, did I always want to be a cashier? No, I was in love with transactions. I was in love with just doing transactions. I love business. And I remember even when we would have, fundraisers. And back in the day, fundraisers were, nowadays there's social media, it's so easy. No, we were walking in the hot sun saying, please, can you buy our sausage and crackers or whatever it is that the school was making you sell. You really had to work hard for it. And those poor people never got their things, but because I forgot where they all lived, but I was just so fascinated of just getting the sale, I wanted to get the sale. And I would go home and I would just count the money and count it. And my mom was like, you counted it 50 times. And my dad was like, let her count it again, and I was just fascinated. And that was, I think those were pivotal moments for me. What is the it factor for our business is, okay. Oh, sorry. It's us. We are the it factor. Yep. We and every person in business, you are the it factor of your business. Without you, you have the vision, you have the dream. We are the it factor for the Barnyard.
Yeah. Thank you. That was great.
So for me, I'm a pharmacist, and I had been working as a pharmacist for many years, decades. And I saw a lot of people in the pharmacy, people I worked with, customers, and so many people were not consuming dairy anymore. And I'd have questions a lot of times, what do you think about this product or that product? And I realized that the majority of the products on the grocery store shelves were the same product. There were no differences. It was really just marketing. And they actually had very few almonds in them, primarily gels, gums, and thickeners. And so I decided why hadn't anybody come up with some kind of a solution to this? Put a better product on the market, something that had the nutrition, the taste, all of the good sensory characteristics of dairy, but was dairy-free. And so I did start the company, and in 2019 I got into a chain of grocery stores called Lucky's, and then I quit my job. And then what happened in December of 2019, Kroger's was the grocery store that was financing the expansion of Lucky's into the Florida market. And Kroger announced that they were going to pull the plug on the financing. Then in January of 2020, all of the Lucky's closed. So I kind of was, high highs and then low lows. And then we got into another grocery chain, the Healthy Edge. And so we were going to launch the product there. February 2020 was when COVID started. And then in March of 2020, they told me I had to close my commercial kitchen. So at that point, I didn't know, was this it? Were we done? And I decided that maybe I should go back to pharmacy. I wasn't sure, but then I had a few people that reached out to me that had been purchasing my product, and they wanted to know how they could get it. Where could we get it? Even though we were in COVID, they still wanted to get my product. And so we did what a lot of other small businesses did at the time. We pivoted and we started selling direct to consumer. We did local deliveries. I learned how to ship a refrigerated product, which was very complicated. We built out a new website, rebranded. So instead of throwing in the towel, I decided to double down and continue. So.
Wonderful. It was the moving refrigerator products that put me out of business. Okay. It's good for you. Poonam, please.
So I am differently raised, differently cultured, and my story pivoted. What pivoted me was my two girls, scared girls, because I don't like to use this word, but from abusive marriage at 1 a.m., seeing two scared girls for their mother, and at that night where my journey started. And I was like, I need to do something. These girls cannot be raised in this environment anymore. Because as an Indian woman raised, we are taught that you just compromise and put up with everything that comes on your way in a marriage. And there are struggles. I'm not saying any marriage is easy, but when it becomes a little abusive, it's hard. And I didn't know any way out of it culturally. I was afraid to tell my dad, I don't want it anymore. But those two girls, I can still see clearly after, I think since 2007, at one night, I was like, I got to change this. Everything needs to be changed. I need to stand up for them. And the challenges started. The first was how to tell my father, how to become divorced Indian woman in my village. I'm from a small place. And then how to stand up in America where I have no family. So challenges were very, very hard. And like Chantal said, very uncomfortable even to think. So I had to take steps one by one, started with my mother, because mothers are always easy to say that you take care of dad now, In the back end, started fight between them, and I just wouldn't face my father. It's like, I'm done, and this is it, you take care of him now. And of course, culturally, dad started praying and asking priest, how can my daughter stay in this marriage? What karma is bringing, what chakra is going on? And over here, I'm trying to see, I cannot let my girls grow in this environment. And I took a stand, saw the lawyer, started all those things, and then here comes the restaurant, which used to be just a side work for me to get out of the house and be away from home, and where it wasn't a happy situation. And I wish I'd done it a lot sooner, but having a chef who is an Indian mentality, they don't like to work under women, and then employees and learning, all that stuff. But just my children, they motivated me. I was like, not anymore. These girls are not going to grow in this environment anymore.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Ciliana and Gladys, you have the enviable position of having a partner in crime. someone to help run the day-to-day operations, bounce ideas off of, maybe lend additional support. How do you feel the partnership has further helped the success of the business? And would you recommend a partnership for those of us considering a business, and maybe even some of the challenges that you face in your partnership?
Okay. I would, number one, I would definitely recommend anyone that goes into business, if you want to, get into partnership with someone, I would recommend it because I've seen how it has helped us. In the beginning, before the barnyard, we had a catering company. Well, I had a catering company that I was kind of trying to get off the ground. And Gladys was always with me helping, even when she was out of state at the time, she would call and she'd do my little social media stuff. And I remember I've always had people that, even if I was failing, they believed in me and they were in love with me, more so than what I was doing. So I would always have people that say, well, let me partner with you. And I have $10,000. I'm like, that's not a lot of money. But I have $10,000 and we could do this. And, and I always said to myself, and I said it in my mind, and I wasn't ready to let Gladys know that because, with a partnership, you go through the struggles together. When you're high, you're high. When you're low, you're low. And I wasn't ready for that weight of bringing her along and going under sometimes and, highs and lows. And I always said to myself, a partner isn't always about money. It's not about someone that can bring in the most amount of money. You need someone that's going to give you experience. You need somebody that's going to wear the business like their skin, that's the first thing you think about. The last thing, they have to be on the same wavelength as you. If not, if you believe in the business more than they do, then it's not going to work. So it's not always about how much money do you have, because Gladys didn't have $1, but I knew she knew. She was rich up here, And I think that is what I loved about Gladys. And number one, she's genuine, she's loyal, and you need it's kind of like looking for a husband, ladies, He could be a little ugly, but it's about his character. You fall in love with the character of a person. That will never change. And I would always recommend, we work differently. She's strong somewhere, I'm strong somewhere, We're like a seesaw. One person's down, this one's gonna come on, balance. We need to be here, Sometimes she's out of it, sometimes I'm out of it, and it works,
If I could add something to that, I remember an African proverb. It said, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Mm-hmm. And so when you take that aspect into business, and it's just like, you can't look just at your nose, you got to look past your nose. Look at the bigger vision, look at what's out there, what are you both trying to attain. I remember at the time there was this one interview that I had with a friend of mine, and he asked the question, and when I answered the question, it didn't hit me until afterwards. I told him that sometimes with partnership, you have you're in partner with somebody else, and then everybody has it out for themselves, right? And it's just human nature. You want to go ahead and you want to make sure that you're okay. But sometimes in business, what I found was that your roots are connected, right? It's kind of like a plant. In the bottom of the tree, there's roots. But those roots are connected, they're intertwined. So her and I were roots, right? So if I water into her, I'm simultaneously watering myself. And if she pours into me, she's simultaneously pouring into herself. So it's not I have it out for myself. But once you can get past, the biggest thing that I had to get past is, of course, I was new to entrepreneurship. I was coming into business for the first time. One thing I had to put down and kill was my ego. And worrying about me and why is everybody talking about her? But at the end of the day, what I realized is if I pour into her, even if they talk about her, I own 50% of this. I get money too. It doesn't matter who is in front, because at one time, she's going to need to shine, so her gifts could shine, and then I'm going to shine, so my gifts could shine. But at the end of the day, the roots are connected, and you're pouring into each other and just simultaneously watering yourself. So kill ego.
That is great.
It's beautiful.
That's wonderful. Poonam, we've obviously heard that you just shared the challenges and struggles you faced early on. When we prepared for this panel, you also discussed the guilt you felt as a single mom trying to run and drive a successful business. Do you mind sharing a little of that and how you overcame it or what tools you used to cope?
Yes. When I took the step forward and became a single mom, all I had to do is work. Restaurant is a long hours job, right? And then I started at 10 a.m. All this time I spent with my 6-year-old, especially my son, was 15 minutes in the morning. When I got him ready, gave him a bowl of cereal or a toast, dropped him to school. His friends, my community friendship was great. He was brought home from Pineview by his friends' parents, or I ran out of the restaurant at 2:30, grabbed him, and came back. Evening again, long hours. By the time I came home, his sister, Milan, who is a USF alumni, will put him to bed before I got home. And just time went by so quickly. He turned 16, had to go to college, UCF, and the moment I said bye to him and saw his car driving past my house, I stood there and I just got stuck to the ground. For 15 minutes, I had my daughter came in and she said, "Mom, are you coming in? He might be already on the interstate." I was like, I could not believe that 10 years passed, and I felt guilty. I was like, oh my God, I did not give him time. I did not do whatever I could do, like his soccer games or something did, but for me, it wasn't enough. And then all of a sudden, depression took over, like, oh my gosh, I didn't cook fresh meals for my kids, or I wasn't in my kids' games and this and that. It was a big struggle until I actually had to go to a therapy with my children. We were like, instead of being there for them, I was feeling so guilty and scared and just sorry. I was more fighting with them, more angry at the situation instead of being more loving. So the moment I went to the therapy, one time all my kids, my son, my 2 daughters, and I sitting there, of course, the pouring tears of everybody's eyes, and my therapist looked at me and said, "I don't know what you are feeling sad about. Look at your children, what you've created. You were not out there doing party and leaving your kids at home. You were providing," and that kind of one little therapy, it clicked. When your family is telling you something, you take it for granted. Mm-hmm. And when somebody else who is not biased to you, doesn't know you, say something, that's why I was like, how people feel therapy is a taboo. I was like, that little thing clicked so good with me. It changed the way I looked at myself and started feeling good. Like, yeah, look at my kids. They are amazing, My daughter did MBA from USF. My other daughter is a nurse practitioner. They both run a small, simple IMG kind of thing, soccer school in Orlando. My son is my partner now. And yeah, so my challenges and that guilt came off because of that. But then when I felt blessed by seeing them flourish, and then when I was also able to put my foot down in front of male society that they were working for me, I was the only woman, and I had about 10 people, and they were ethnic Indian, of course. So challenges more, I had to step forward and believe in myself. Like I said, I am possible. I'm going to get out of there. And I had to conquer my fears. The biggest fear was, what if chef leaves? What I'm going to do overnight if somebody tandoori chef leaves? I have 3 different criterias of work, right? I had to think about everything, and I was like, you know what? Put your sleeves up and get in that kitchen. I was a house cook, mom, everything. I'm a daughter of a very passionate cook, so I knew how to cook. But how to cook for 100 people together was a challenge, and I had to deal with that.
It's amazing.
So, yeah.
I'm sure they learn by watching you conquer all of that. Vicki, a lot of work went into creating the ideal almond milk, which is delicious out there. If you haven't put it in your coffee yet, it's wonderful. Talk to us about the process, as well as the patent part that you had to seek, and finally deciding who to partner with regarding manufacturing and production.
So the process was actually very easy. When I decided to try to create a better quality almond milk, as a pharmacist, I'm used to working with the regulatory agencies, and so I reached out to the Florida Department of Agriculture and worked with them for about a year. Can we do this? Can we do that? Would this be something you would feel comfortable with? And so they kind of guided me with things that we could do, things that they weren't so comfortable with. And so after about a year, we came up with a process. So they were very, very helpful. And so that was relatively simple. But the patent was completely different. The patent was very challenging. The patent took many years and thousands and thousands of dollars working with attorneys, lots and lots of studies. I worked with a microbiologist in town who was very, very helpful. So the patent was a challenge, but we finally got it. And so now this is a patented product, and the intellectual property that is now owned by the company, that was really important. I'm so glad that I did that because it adds value to the company, and it also kind of validates that what we're doing is so different. It's so uniquely different. And so we were granted this patent, and we have a second patent coming. Oh. So, and then what was the process?
Yeah, how did you decide on your manufacturing, and how did you decide to partner with who you chose for manufacturing? And
so we're still kind of figuring that out. And I've partnered with co-packers in the past. I've had people manufacture the product in the past. And I think that the best decision is to choose a manufacturer that does more than just manufacture. So a strategic partner, so maybe a manufacturer that also produces a complementary product, or a manufacturer that has good relationships with distributors that you're going to work with. So somebody that's strategic, that kind of brings more to the table than just making the product.
That's great. Vicki and I were speaking before we got started, and I asked her how did she make it so long? And she said she had to remind herself it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I thought that was really impactful. Ciliana and Gladys, you started your business in 2019 together, and then shortly after we entered the height of COVID. I'm sure there were many sleepless nights for all of you and your business during that time. Talk to us about what that meant for you and your business at the height of COVID there, and how did you handle that adversity, and what changes did you have to make, if any, as a result?
So back in 2019, when we first started, we started with what we had, which was our mom's porch. So we were frying chicken. We owned the Barnyard, which is chicken sandwiches, wraps, burgers, and all those things. But at the time, we were frying chicken. The only thing we had was her porch. So people would send us a DM through Facebook, and they would say, hey, I want to order 3 chicken sandwiches and 2 tater tots. So as they would come, they would go ahead and we had this like makeshift drive-through, I guess. So we would say, so what kind of car are you driving? They might say, I'm driving a red Honda. So we'll go in and we said, red Honda is here, and they will come and get red Honda. So at this time, there was no COVID. But then at 2020, COVID peaks, and then here we are with this makeshift drive-through system where people can still go ahead and order their thing. But the problem came because in the same year of 2020 with COVID, we also moved into the farmers market where we are. So we went from everybody's okay going through a drive-through to now people are scared to come inside because they're telling you can't go indoors. And if you go indoors, it has to be air, and then can't do this. So we were like thinking, we're just like, okay, so now we're in this farmer's market. Are people still going to come? Are they still going to take their orders? So it was, I think, the most challenging part. Well, they still came. The food is amazing. So they still came. But I think the most challenging part with whole COVID for us, how do I say this? We actually did, we doubled in business during COVID. COVID actually did really well for us. But the most challenging part was the day-to-day seeing restaurant after restaurant after restaurant after restaurant shut down, but yet you have to still keep hope and keep the faith that we're not going to be next. So I think that was the most challenging part for us. Was that a challenge for you?
That was definitely a challenge, but it was also a blessing. What we also learned, there's a saying that says that millionaires are born in the time of adversity, and I'm like, Gladys, we're going to be millionaires. But the question was how, and I think that when adversity comes, the best thing to do is do the opposite of what everybody's doing. Everybody was frozen in fear. With reason. People were dying. People were, getting sick and they were having babies women were having babies on their own. I had a friend, she couldn't have a proper funeral for her mom, and it was just, everybody was frozen in fear. And we got into a space where it was like, okay, what do we do? Are we going to stay frozen and just kind of let the business go? At the time we were peaking, and it was just like, do we let this die, or do we buckle down and figure out what do we do? And I think that was the most pivotal point for us, is that, not letting fear kind of overpower us and finding solutions. We are entrepreneurs. That's what we do on the daily. We solve problems. It was just another problem to solve. And because I think we stepped out and we said, okay, we were scared. We was like, well, what if COVID comes through the chicken? And someone eats a sand. Like, we didn't know. No one knew what COVID was. Everybody was just like, what is COVID? Where is it coming from? How do you contract? We were just all learning. So we were like, oh God, if somebody eats that, and we're like thinking crazy.
An outbreak comes, and it was like, an outbreak in the chicken.
It was the chicken sandwich that did it.
We're moving burgers.
Yeah. So it was just like, we had to kind of step back. And as women, we can be a little bit emotional, and we kind of take things, to the extreme. Human do, but women, we're like experts at that. But it was kind of like taking a step back and say, okay, what's logical? What is just us being super careful? And where do we say, okay, fear has to just move aside, and we got to keep moving forward. And I think that is what kind of took our business from, doing what it was doing to like double, even tripling in sales, so. We're not millionaires yet, though.
You're on your way. You got comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes, that's
well
exactly
done. Poonam, you faced biases. You've already shared this, culturally and gender specific. How did you overcome those? And what would you share with others facing these types of challenges in their own work that they're facing today?
I think as a woman or a man, I see my son going through it. I think big thing is conquer your fears. Your fear is your biggest enemy. That's what holds us all back. I was reading a book by Who Will Cry When You Die by Robin Sharma, and it said the fear, the success lies on the other side of the fear. And if I see just my story from childhood to arranged marriage till now, the fears had kept me up. And if you conquer your fear one after another, like if I use what I personally did, my biggest challenge and fear first was getting out of abusive marriage, was how to share it with my father. And then how to hire a divorce attorney. Like one by one, my fears were where to go from here. And the biggest and the most difficult thing for me was working with my chef. The chef was hired by my ex. And I would love to share this little story. Like he was hired by him, so he wouldn't listen to me. We opened a restaurant evening at 5 p.m. He'll walk in at 5:15. I saw that after my divorce. I looked at him. I said, we call elder men like bhaiya means brother, like elderly brother. I was like, you're showing up at 5:15 being the executive chef here. I start taking orders at 5 o'clock. He said, well, that's what I did when the boss was here, and that's what I'm going to do. And I looked at him and I had no word to say. I just walked in, and now what I do? So the fear was, do I shut down the restaurant because chef is never going to listen to me, or I do what at the best? So I went to his assistant chef. I said, you got 2 weeks to learn exactly what he does, and you're going to get paid even more than what I pay him. But you got to copy everything, just to watch. I didn't give him a warning, the egoistic chef. I didn't let him know, because planning. I divorced without planning. I zipped out from alimony and child support. So plan, definitely. I took action. When I said I am out, I was out. I didn't care. I thought he will never cheat his kids with the money, right? But boy, that was a bad decision. So plan, like in a business, have a business plan. In a personal thing, plan, communicate. So I planned to get rid of my chef. 2 weeks later, I handed him his final check. I said, thank you very much for your services. We're done. And he like kind of looked at me like, are you serious? Are you going to close your restaurant? That was 2007. And it's 2023. So conquer your fear. Anything deep down, there is something holding you back. We are afraid of what others will say. We are afraid of what other people will think of us. And in the end, ladies and gentlemen, we have to live for ourselves. As long as your conscious mind can say you're doing the right thing. You know, we've all made mistakes, lying, stealing from parents and not telling when we are in trouble. We've all done it. And one thing I don't do anymore, Kelly, is I don't judge people for what they're doing and what they're going through. But if I'm afraid, I plan how to get out of that.
That is so helpful. I really wish I would have done this panel last year before I sold my part of the business. Okay, Vicki, you must have experienced multiple starts and stops on your quest to develop a better almond milk over years. How did you keep yourself motivated, and did you have a mentor or a confidant that helped along the way? And if you did, how did you identify that individual that would be that rock to help you keep going?
So first of all, I think that what kept me going was feedback from customers, because it would have been so easy to just throw in the towel and go back to pharmacy. But the customers would keep coming back and saying, this is amazing. This product is just like nothing else on the market. And you can't give up because there is nothing else that I'll drink. And I have customers that kind of worry if they're going to travel and what am I going to, or if I travel and they can't get it. So I felt like I have to continue to, nobody else is doing this. So I have to, I felt obligated to continue to put this product out there. And I've had so many mentors along the way. It really started with SCORE, which is a nonprofit here in the Sarasota chapter. And the primary advisor that I had was so helpful. And if it wasn't a skill set that she kind of possessed, then she would find the appropriate advisor for me. And they can tap into this huge network of other SCORE advisors. So SCORE was really helpful. And then I also worked with USF a lot. So USF had a program with the MBA students. Well, first I worked with the marketing students, the undergrad students, and they did a marketing plan for me, and that was very helpful. And I would encourage anybody to take advantage of that if you're starting a business. So the undergrad students did the marketing plan, and then the grad students, the MBA students, I worked with them for about almost a year. And they developed a very comprehensive business plan for me. So, and I still reach out to them now for guidance and help. And so they were very helpful as well.
That is great. So we're going to end with one last question to each of you. Actually, I'll ask two, and you can choose to answer them both or each, or just one. Who was your role model and why? Or what advice would you give your younger self? So why don't we start with Poonam this time?
My role model, besides being a very successful people in this world, is my father. He started his work when he passed the 10th grade. It was very poor family, very poor family. He used to tell me that he owned 2 pajamas and 2 shirts every year. That's all he had, and did everything within that. But he started by borrowing 100 rupee, which is about $2 and $1.50 now, and did everything that is small. For him, no work was small. He did buy fruits, sold fruits, and stayed out of the house three days and nights. So in this business, success comes from him. It's a kind of my DNA not to give up. And he what the biggest thing my dad taught me, not to procrastinate. When he was here helping me, when I took over the restaurant, if I was tired home and I needed something, like I vividly remember I needed a case of tomatoes for the restaurant, which I thought I'll go tomorrow. It was 3 o'clock, I was tired and I had to run the evening shift. He goes, I'm sitting in the car. We are going to Restaurant Depot and get that case of tomato. Like, Dad, couldn't we do that 7 a.m.? I'll get it. No, let's get it over with so you will have nothing on your mind at night. It's like, okay. So I hated it at that time, but actually it works. I tell my children now, do not procrastinate. Do things what you have to do. Make your small goals, but get them done. Goal on the paper is just a goal. So my dad and what was the other thing?
What advice would you give your younger self?
My younger self. Do the right thing, be kind, but stand for yourself. Don't let anybody overpower your wishes.
Love that. Thank you. Vicki,
So it was mentors.
who was your role model and why, and what advice would you give your younger self?
So for role models, I have so many role models. One of the things I love to do when I have time, if I'm driving or just some free time, maybe going for a walk or a run, I listen to the podcast How I Built This on NPR. And there is story after story after story. The host of the show is Guy Raz, and he interviews different entrepreneurs. And hearing their stories, hearing some of the things they've encountered, obstacles they overcome, I just think about that and I think, oh my God, my situation isn't anywhere as bad as their situation. So it was so inspiring listening to, and there's hundreds of them. So one of the founder of Tate's Cookies, Tate's Bakery, was very inspiring. Angie Bastian, who was here last year with Angie's Boom Chicka Pop, that was very inspiring. But there are literally hundreds of them. So I listen to that all the time. And what was the other?
What advice would you give your younger self?
So I think I spent a lot of time also when my children were a little bit younger, traveling around the state and doing demos and events for the almond milk. And I would say you've got to make sure you kind of reel that in because the business can just take over and you can't get that time back. So you definitely want to carve out time for yourself, for your family, because life goes really fast and you want to make sure that you're enjoying life, but also continuing with your business.
Kelly, may I add something? Ladies, what we really need to do, which I didn't do until now, love yourself. That was the biggest thing. We are born with our DNA to please other people as a woman. I don't know about here all the time, but in India, it's like a woman's duty is to please everybody. Love yourself. The moment you can love yourself unconditionally and forgive yourself for if something you think you haven't done right, not when other people tell you you are wrong, but if you think you've done something wrong, forgive yourself and move on. Life is too short, enjoy it, but love yourself.
Love that. Thank you. Celiana?
Yes, my role model would be my grandmother. My grandmother was the one, my mom worked a lot and she was the one that raised us in the home, and she was born in 1928. So we were learning things that we would never use today. But it's the fundamentals, right? And she would, just teach us everything. She was born in 1928, so there's a mindset that she was stuck on. And when you talked about the women always caring and pleasing, she was all about that. We used to have to serve our brothers and they would laugh at us, and my grandma was hard of hearing, so she didn't hear that they were laughing at us. And she was like a stay-at-home mom, but she was helping my mom. And one thing I always saw her do was that she did everything the best that she could. Her weakness became her strength. She was a foreigner, so she didn't speak English, and she was hard of hearing. But when she would go places, she would be like, she always used to teach us, a woman is seen and not heard. you know, and I understood what she meant. Not that you stay quiet and you don't, but let your presence be louder than, you know, just being loud for being loud. You right? And the way she came in, even though she didn't speak English, she didn't, you know, she was hard of hearing. When she walked into a place, she walked in like she owned the place, and she got done what she needed to get done, you know. And she was a babysitter for the neighborhood. She was a masseuse. She would, you know, people get in an accident. She knew how to fix you all up. No license, never went to school for it, but everybody's walking straight now.
5-star reviews through and through.
Yeah. So, but she just always, and everything she did the best. Like, she did it in the best way. If I could give my younger self an advice, I would say, and I stand firm on this even today, is be the best that you can be anywhere. Greatness doesn't start when you're doing what you love. It starts when you're not doing what you love, right? If you're at McDonald's and you're the fry guy or girl, you know, learn how to be a better fry person, right? When you leave, your presence needs to be felt like this person left. If you're a stay-at-home mom, and this is, you know, and I say this because a lot of stay-at-home moms, I have friends who are stay-at-home moms, and they always feel like, you know, they're not, you know, you're a businesswoman and I'm just a stay-at-home. Be the best stay-at-home mom ever. You know, learn how to clean like you never clean. Learn how to make cleaning cocktails and be the best scrubber, you know, ironer. Run your house as a business, you know, and be the best at what you can be wherever you are. You know, always honing on your skills wherever you are. So when you do get to that level, you know, wherever, you know, life leads you, you're used to just being great. Nobody likes to slouch, you know. So if I could give my younger self an advice, it would be the best every time, everywhere, no matter what. Yeah.
Wonderful.
My role model was, and always will be, my mom. My mom was a foreigner, just like my grandma, came into the country, didn't know any English, has a similar story to you with marriage. And I've never said this out loud, but my mom graduated, I guess she finished school with, I guess, the equivalent of an 8th grade education. Mm-hmm. And my mom would always try her best to express to us the opportunity that we have at our fingertips. She was just like, Americans, you guys don't see it, but foreigners, we see it because we're just coming from countries that didn't have the opportunities that you all are afforded, and you all are taking it for granted. And she would always say something. She said, if I was born here, I would buy America and sell it back to them with interest. So it was, my mom is like this silent grizzly bear. She's like, she'll walk into this room and then she'll just sit down and she'll be like, but in her mind, she's like, let me tell you what, you need to do this, 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 this. Yeah. So, and I've learned to take that from her, just to be that, just to always analyze and see where I can get better, what can I do better? And there was one quote that I heard, and then they said, if you're looking like, how do I get better? Where do I get better? Ask yourself, if I were to go against me, where would I attack? Mm-hmm. So that identifies your weak spot. So right when you identify your weak spot, work on that. The advice that I would give to my younger self, I would tell little Gladys, it's okay to be nice. Not nice, be kind. Be kind, because for me, there's a difference between being nice and being kind. It's okay to be kind to people and to be overly kind, right? Because it always comes back. But just hone in on that silent grizzly bear. And I think that's what I'm learning to do, that my mom does, is to just sit in a room, analyze, but then when you get out, turn into that grizzly bear, you know? Mm-hmm. So I would tell little Gladys to be kind. Kindness is key. And to attack like mama bear. And someone's after your cubs. And when it comes to business. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, ladies, I don't know about you and gentlemen in the crowd, but I feel stronger and more motivated having heard from all of you today. So thank you for sharing. We have a little gift behind your chair for each of you. So one more round of applause for them. Thank you so much, ladies. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you for having us.
Okay.
Yes, you guys.
Leave. Okay. I'm like,
Thank
stay here.
you. Thank you so much. While they're exiting, I'll draw your attention
Thank you.
to this flyer that's on your chair, self-promotion for sure. Kelly, thank you. Jared has a little gift for you. After the event, we had so much fun last year, and folks were looking for ways to connect. So we are going to do a Gulfside Wealth Wine and Women event at Waterside. I'm not Waterside, geez, I was talking about my dress, came from Waterside, from Waterworks. Sorry, epic fail. At Waterworks on March 27th. So the registration will be open. So hopefully we can continue the discussion, and our presenters will be there, and you guys can all join us. So just make sure that you register for that so we know how much adult beverage or water and treats to share. I was going to introduce you to somebody, but he walked out the door. So, so that's okay. So why don't we continue on? And after Dr. Lisa Penny, I bring her up to the stage, which I am so excited about this presentation that she's doing. She did it as a TED Talk recently. Make sure that during break that you register, because we are having a raffle with some pretty amazing prizes. So just if you haven't had a chance to do so. I want to make one note. Vicky's almond milk is local, and she has it out there for the coffee, as well as there's a cold brew. So some folks thought that was chocolate milk. It does look like chocolate milk, but it is a cold brew, and it is amazing if you think it's a cold brew. So make sure you get the chance to try the almond milk. Ciliana, much like you, I enjoyed scanning after the grocery store too. My mom, who's in the back, will remember I used to, on the dishwasher, plug the little things and act like I was, I like the bleepy noise. Bleep, bleep, yes. So thank you for sharing that. I'm glad I'm not alone. So question, the barnyard is in Bradenton. Tandoor is technically, I guess, in Manatee County, but it's at Cooper's Creek. So if you know where Total Wine is and Nordstrom Rack and some of those places, Tandoor's opposite in the strip center, where next to Marshall's, where Pier 1 used to be. And the barnyard is in Bradenton, inside the Onika Farmers Market.
So where is your food truck? I just said.
Okay, and their food truck is getting wrapped, and you can follow them on the Barnyard FL. Okay, Facebook or Instagram, you can follow them. The Barnyard FL. Okay. Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and keep this party moving. So Dr. Lisa Penny has been featured in and on a variety of international media fronts. She's given this presentation via the TED Talk and continues to be a leader in research around critical thinking, decision-making, and creativity in stressful situations or conditions. So Dr. Lisa Penny.
All right, can you hear me? All right, I am very excited to be here and to follow such a wonderful panel of speakers and inspiring women. So the talk I'm going to give today is actually a variation of the TEDx talk. So if you've seen it, it's not going to be a repeat. But I was asked to talk about stress and burnout, which is my research area, and imposter syndrome. And honestly, when you talk about that stuff, it just sounds like a big downer. And so what I want to talk about instead more is the stories that we tell ourselves and how stress impacts the stories that we tell ourselves. We've heard a lot of wonderful stories, inspiring stories today about how people, these amazing women have overcome the stories that they've told themselves at one point. You know, as women, we get told a lot of stories that we hear so often, we start repeating them to ourselves, and then we can get stuck by those stories. And then we have opportunities to actually break those stories, to create our own stories. And so what I'm hoping to do today is to help explain to you where those stories come from, how we can break out of those stories so we can start crafting our own, okay? So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to start by helping you understand your brain, because this is where it all starts. So what you see up here is a map of the brain, and you know our brain is made up of neurons, these cells that connect together, and all of these electrical pathways you see, there are some that are really, really bright, so those are like that information superhighway where the information goes really fast, kind of like how I'm talking right now because of the coffee that I had this morning. So those bright pathways are where the information travels really, really fast. And you see some pathways that are much more faint. Those are those new neural pathways that are just being formed, or maybe they're old pathways that roads we haven't traveled very often, so they start to extinguish. Now, the connections that our brains form are how we create meaning out of the world, so how we perceive things. So our perceptions are basically the stories that we tell ourselves about the experiences that we have. Okay, so as we go about the world, we encounter things, objects, events, and what have you, and as we encounter them, our brain makes up a story or has an image in our mind of exactly what it is that we're encountering. Now, for those of us who are visually able, we tend to take for granted that the story that we have in our mind about what's happening is a perfect representation of what's happening out there in reality. And I'm here to show you how that's not always the case. Okay, so you see two orange circles on this slide. Which one's bigger? Now, you may have seen this before, or you're smart people, you know, this is a trick question, and they're both the same size, right? Now, but what does your brain want to tell you? At first glance, it says the one on that far side is actually bigger, right? But you know, because you're smart and you're thinking this out, it's like, actually, no, they're both the same size, but you can feel the tension in your mind, right? There's one part of you that says, no, they're different sizes, but another part of you says, it's actually the same size. So that tension in your mind is where I want you to put your focus. Okay, feel where that discomfort is there. I'm going to show you another. The first shape that you see is, most of you will say triangle. There is no triangle there. Okay, I've actually got into an argument with a friend of mine who insisted there was a triangle there. There is no triangle. Our brain infers the presence of a triangle based on the presence of all these other shapes around it. So because triangles are more familiar shapes, we're used to seeing triangles, it's one of those fast pathways, our brain quickly assumes that there is a triangle there when there's none there. Now, if you're a child of the 80s like me, maybe you saw the Pac-Man shapes first, but, but most people see a triangle because that's what's most familiar. Okay, but so you feel the tension in your mind, right, where you're, okay, I'm going to take your word for it. Maybe there's a triangle, but part of me is like, no, I still see a triangle, right? Okay, here's where you're really going to start to get upset with me. What does this say? Okay, I'm going to stop you right there because that's not what it says. Okay, what it says here, okay, it's thank you. It is gibberish. And what your brain says is, no, actually, it tells me something about me being really smart because I can read this, right? That's not what's there. That is not what's there. So why does that happen? It happens because our brains don't like uncertainty. We don't like chaos. Our brains look for information based on our past experiences. Our brains is used to looking for words. And so our brain perceives words where there are none. Right? And in order to make sense out of it. But if we stop for a moment to really think about it, we can see that there's actually gibberish here. In fact, I think this is probably how a lot of conspiracy theories start, is that we don't like chaos, we don't like uncertainty, so we look for an explanation, we look for meaning, a story that we can hold on to, even if that story's not true. Now, this is where I think the tension in your brain has probably gotten so discomfort or uncomfortable that you're probably leaning towards that fast story. You're looking to the people next to you going, you can read that, right? I know what that says. And also probably starting to get really upset with me. And so we're going to circle back to exactly why you do that too in just a moment. But the reason why we have the tension in your brains are a function of two ways of thinking. Okay, what we call our fast brain and our slow brain. So our fast brain is what runs by default on autopilot. All of those neural pathways that are really well worn, that's what we go to first. And our slow brain is actually where we're forming new connections. It's much more effortful, it's uncomfortable, so when we're actually engaged in that slow brain, it doesn't feel good. It actually, we use a lot more energy when we're thinking slowly. So if you've ever had to do a lot of planning, or you're thinking or studying, and you feel like, I've just been sitting here for a couple hours doing nothing, but why am I so tired? Why am I so hungry? It's because you're actually burning more calories when you're actually thinking things critically. So thinking, hey, that's one way you can actually burn some calories. So if you need an incentive to do that. So let's unpack this a little bit more. How does this form? So again, our brains are connection makers. When we're learning new things, like if we encounter an object for the first time, such as something like this, and when it gets paired with a word, say like bottle, our brain makes a connection. Okay, so our slow brain is making that connection over time through repetition. As we learn, it becomes a much more stronger connection, so that knowledge becomes automatic. We just know what that is. We don't have to think about it. So this is the same process in operation in almost everything else that we do. So even really complex things like driving. Driving is a super complex psychomotor skill that involves us paying attention to a lot of information, thinking about when you first learned how to drive, right? So there's just learning how all the things inside of your vehicle operate. So paying attention to the instruments, the panels, how all the controls, how does that work? Do you remember when you first learned how to drive, how overwhelming that was? And then once you get on the road, you have to pay attention to all the traffic. You have to pay attention to where you are in relation to all that traffic. You have to pay attention to where you're going, what the road conditions are, all the other vehicle signs. So there's a lot of connections that your brain is making. And so when you're learning how to drive, this is very much a slow brain process, right? So this is why your parents didn't want you in the car with other distractions, with your phone, with music, with friends, because it took all of your cognitive resources to focus on what you were doing to make those connections so that you can arrive safely. Make sense? So you remember, it was really uncomfortable, right? Really hard, really effortful, really uncomfortable when you first learned how to drive. And the same is true, anything you're learning how to do for the first time. Learning is uncomfortable. Now, with time and practice, it becomes a fast brain exercise. So most of you, probably as you go to work every day, you drive to work, to home from work, and you have no memory of the drive, right? But you know you made it safely because you came home without any like wreckage or anything like that, hopefully, right? So you were making all of these decisions, doing all these things automatically without having to think about it, because your fast brain has taken over. You've developed so much experience around this that you don't have to think about it. This is a wonderful thing that our brain does for us, because we can put this into practice, and now you can think about on your drive home, you can think about your planning for the weekend, or what you're going to do for your next business strategy or anything else, right? So it frees up a lot of resources. So our fast brains are a really wonderful resource for us until we get into a new situation where that expertise doesn't matter. Okay, so if you've ever been to the UK and you're trying to drive, thankfully I've not been, had to do that. I'm like, I'll take public transit. I'm not going to get behind the wheel there because I don't trust my fast brain. I'd have to actually slow down in order to do this. So in order to operate safely in a new environment, it requires us to recognize that we are in a new environment and to slow down and to realize, where does our past experience, that fast brain information, where is it relevant and where is it not? And I think this is a really good metaphor for what's happened in the world when COVID hit, and even since COVID over the last couple of years as we're recovering. What I've seen is a lot of leaders, a lot of managers, a lot of people just in general in a hurry to, let's just go and do, I don't want to do whatever they're asking me to do. I don't want to socially distance. I don't want to mask. I don't want to stay back in the office. I don't want to come back to work. I want to stay at home. It's because our tendency is to want to do what's familiar instead of stopping to recognize, does this really work? What's the new situation here? How do I need to adapt, right? So how and why does this happen? Why do we have this fast brain in the first place? It happens because our brains evolved to prioritize survival and not being rational. Okay, so that means a couple of things that I want to unpack. It means making fast decisions over optimal ones. I've already said making fast decisions uses less energy. It's much more efficient for us to do. It's comfortable, so we want to go back to what we know. And also, if you're being chased by a bear, it's like you don't want to, if you're not sure if there's a bear in the woods, it's better to just run than to actually stop and gather information and figure out what that is. It's better to just hurry up and go. The other thing this means is we tend to look for threats. We are hardwired to look for danger, which is why when we get uncomfortable with something, we tend to look for somebody or something or someone to blame, which is why if you started getting annoyed with me with that last slide with the gibberish on it, and if you started feeling like, okay, I don't like her very much because I'm uncomfortable, that's a totally normal response. We tend to look for people to blame to identify threats. Again, that helped early humans where threats were usually coming from other people or other entities. We had to look for something that was the source of danger. The other thing is social conformity. We tend to want to look for other people to confirm our stories rather than to investigate them ourselves, right? So if you're kind of looking at your neighbors going, I know what that slide says, you can read that too, right? Instead of actually seeing what's there, we look to other people to confirm our stories rather than to look for new ones. Okay, so as a result of all of this, we don't always see our situations clearly. And so this shows up in a lot of different ways in our lives. And one of my favorite ways I think that's really relatable is to think about traffic, which I had to sit in on with all the snowbirds are here. So, when we're sitting in traffic and people do things that we don't like, that upset us, like if they cut us off, our fast brain knee-jerk reaction is they're a jerk, right? Okay, this is a jerk who doesn't care about people. They're just, flinging around. Now, my slow brain says, well, are you sure that they're a jerk? Yes, they're a jerk because cutting people off is what jerks do. End of story. I'm not going to question that. I like that story. It's familiar. I'm used to telling it. I've heard my parents and my friends, everybody says this story, so it's a really easily accessible story, so that's what I go to. But if I slow down a little bit, and look, there might be other explanations available, right? So maybe this person's not a jerk. Maybe they're racing to the hospital because they're really concerned about a loved one, okay? Or maybe they just have diarrhea and they're trying to get to a bathroom, right? So you don't know. The truth is we don't know, but our fast brain, we can go with that fast brain story and we know where that story goes. Or we can slow things down, engage our slow brain to actually figure out, well, to tell ourselves a different story, to create our own story, or to find out what's really happening so we can respond more wisely. So the reason why we end up with these, going with these fast stories, and so this is why that uncomfortableness that we're used to, this is, and how it's so easy to get stuck in those fast familiar stories, is because of how our brains operate under stress. And this is something that's called the amygdala hijack. It's also called fight or flight, but I want to talk to you about the amygdala hijack, because I think this helps to demystify this. So if you're uncomfortable and you're really feeling stuck and you don't know why, it's not because there's anything wrong with you. This is, I think, just understanding how your mind works helped you to have some distance from that so you can actually start crafting your own story. So without going too much into the neurobiology, your prefrontal cortex, this part of your brain, this is where all that slow brain thinking, where you can do executive functions and high-level thinking, all that planning and things from businesses, that's where that happens. Your amygdala is the emotion center of the brain. Okay, so when we get under stress, when something happens that causes us to stop and go, uh-oh, okay, the amygdala hijacks the system. Okay, and the interesting thing about when the amygdala hijack happens is this fight or flight response. Basically, the story your brain is telling itself is, I'm about to die. Okay, because this was a survival mechanism. So I'm about to die means that I'm going to, your brain will automatically divert all of the energy in that fight or flight response. It prepares you to fight, okay, or to flee. And so your brain's executive functions go offline as your energy gets diverted to the rest of your body to take action. So if you've ever been on a plane, you know when it's getting ready to take off and they turn off all auxiliary power, right? So they turn off the lights, the AC unit, what have you, because they're diverting all of the energy to the engines because of it takes extra torque for it to lift off. Right? So our brains do the same thing for our body. It's like, okay, if your brain says, I'm about to die, okay, we got to get ready to go, which means the part of your brain that actually can go, hey, what's actually happening here? You literally lose your mind. Okay, you can't, your brain says, I'm about to die, and you don't see what's happening in front of you. And so, for example, you see a threat, hardwired to look for a threat, we get uber focused on the threat that's in front of us, so much so that all the surrounding information goes blurry. Okay, we get really zeroed in on that, and we don't see really clearly all that's around us. And in fact, we don't even see sometimes that we're not actually in danger at all. Okay, so again, your brain responds this way whether you're being chased by a bear or a lion, or if you just got an email from somebody about a meeting that just got canceled. Your brain operates the same way, and you're going to find yourself telling yourself the most familiar story. Oh, they're canceling this meeting. This isn't important, or this always happens. They're ignoring me again, or this. If you're laughing because you know this is familiar. This is something that we do, right? Now, this fast brain. This is also how we end up walking the same paths over and over again, telling ourselves the same stories over and over again. And again, maybe they're stories that we've told ourselves or the stories that we've been told. You know, as women, we get told a lot of stories about who we are, what we can or we can't do. What's a good girl like? We know what that is, right? Okay, when we buy into these stories without realizing at any moment we can stop and step out of that story, right? But when we're under stress, when we're nervous, our tendency is to stick to those really familiar stories instead of learning how to step out of the stories. It's also how we can get really frame locked into a position, right? Where I know this position, this is my knee-jerk story, I'm gonna stay here, and we don't often make ourselves available to see that there are many other perspectives available too, right? So this is how we can get stuck. So I'm not telling you this story because I'm trying to shame you, again, and say that there's something wrong with you if this happens. I'm not even telling you this to say, don't do it. Don't come up with these fast stories. Don't make that up. Because the truth is we can't stop doing that. It's something that's just how our brains operate. And in fact, a lot of times our fast brain can be really, really helpful. If you're in familiar territory, this is where agility comes in. If you know, I know how to deal with the situation, this is great. Let your fast brain run with you. So it's good. What I want to do is to make you more aware. of how your brain operates so that you can know when to slow down, when to take a closer look at a situation so that you can see, is the story I'm telling myself, does it make sense? Is this really serving me? And so it's much easier said than done. I know, so what I'd like to do is to provide you with a practice I had to come up with myself because I need things really simple in order to interrupt that process. And so what I call this my ABC practice, which is to be aware, breathe, and curiosity. So let me unpack each of these steps for you. So the first step is to just be aware. And if I had more time, I would have said, instead of awareness, pause. Pause. Okay, so be aware. Okay, so notice when you're feeling stressed. Okay, notice when your heart rate is kicked up, when you feel like, and I actually tell myself, oh, I'm losing my mind. Like, okay, I'm feeling my mind, like my fast brain is running and it's 20 miles ahead of me, it's not here. Okay, be aware first that you're feeling stressed. You're going to notice your knee-jerk reactions in your stories. Another way that you can think about this is HALT. Now, actually, I found this acronym in a neuroscience paper. This is when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, especially, those are biological imperatives, by the way, especially social animals. If you're feeling any of these things, our brain is thinking, I need to take care of these biological needs, which means your prefrontal cortex, no, I'm not thinking clearly, okay? So when you start by noticing that, and it feels like an undertow, right? It feels like a current. It's like, I just want to do this. I want to really go fast. Be aware first. Just pause. Pause when you're in that situation. Once you pause, breathe. Okay, I just heard people I love that. People went, exactly. Take a breath. Okay, what breathing does, and you hear a lot of people talk about meditation and breathing, what have you, there's actually a neurobiological reason why we need to take a breath. Okay, when we are under stress or when we're, running if we're running from a bear, we don't take deep breaths. Okay, when you take a deep breath, that's a signal to your brain that you're safe. Okay, so taking a deep breath is a way to calm your body's system. It calms that fight or flight reaction, and it brings your brain's executive functions back online. This is how I find my mind again. It's like, okay, I take that breath. It helps to open your focus and your mind. Like I said, when we get really stressed out, we get really myopic. We see, oh, just this problem that's in front of me. We don't see everything else that's available to us. We get certainly just overly focused there. Taking a breath helps you to relax. Okay, now I can see what's available to myself. And once you're there, then to be curious. Okay, that means bringing your slow brain online and asking questions. So what's happening right now? Okay, what's really happening right now? Because sometimes it's a story that's the first story that's going to pop up is going to be the most familiar story. I'm a victim here. This person is undermining me. This is a bad thing. This is a disaster. Okay, but what's the story I'm telling myself about it? So what's happening, but okay, what's the story I'm telling myself? What does this really mean? Okay, separating what's happening from the story that's in your mind, and then asking yourself, is it true? Is it, what does the evidence say? This is, if you're feeling uncomfortable, yeah, it's because it's the slow brain. Again, nothing wrong with you. This is where you learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, is knowing I'm using my slow brain to see the situation much more clearly. So being willing to let go of an old story, especially if it's keeping you trapped, is how we get out of that. So being really willing to investigate, is it true? What's really happening right now? Is it, and not just that, but what else is happening? Okay, because there might be one thing, an obstacle that you see, but that's not all that's there. When we get stressed, all we see is the obstacle. When we can relax, we see, oh, there are many other opportunities available to me. This isn't my only choice. Stress says, this is the only choice I have because this is the most familiar one. No, when we can breathe, we can open up the possibilities for ourselves. So being aware, taking that breath, so pausing, breathing, and being curious, and that curiosity really is where you find the opportunity to craft a new story for yourself, to be the author of whatever that story is going to be. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lisa. We really appreciate it. All right. We have a quick 10-minute break, but before we do, the person who left the room that I was going to introduce is back. So Dennis Murphy, the CEO of Gulfside Bank, has joined us, and I'm so appreciative of you being here, so thank you. And two of my other coworkers, Kathy Collins and Tracy Wolf, so thank you, guys. All right, don't forget to register at break. Come back. We have a great panel following the break. Make sure you register for the raffle. And Poonam's Restaurant brought some samosa. Okay, samosas, and then we have other treats. So Fresh from Tandora should be out there if it's, I mean, I'm hoping we gave them enough time to run it over here. So make sure you get a treat or two, and there's waters and some other things. Oh, good. Caitlin just gave me, oh, Gianni and Christy, thank you for bringing the samosas. So they are out there. The treats from Tandora are out there. So be back at 10:45. The breakfast was sponsored by the Women in Leadership and Philanthropy, and I want to give Lauren and Nevin a chance to just tell you a quick little bit about all that Women in Philanthropy, Leadership and Philanthropy does, not only for USF, but for women. I don't see them, though. Oh, well, there's Lauren. Oh, there. Okay, great. All right, so welcome to the stage, Lauren and Nevin. Thank you.
Good morning, and what an incredible and inspirational day to be surrounded by so many amazing women. And to all of the gentlemen in the room, thanks for championing us and for supporting us on this incredible day. I'm Lauren Gestalder, and I am the Executive Director of USF's Women in Leadership and Philanthropy Group. Just curious, by a show of hands, how many of you are familiar with the group? Well, thank you very much, and I recognize many of your faces, so big thanks to those who are members. For nearly 18 years, Women in Leadership and Philanthropy has been focused on engaging and activating its members so that they can do two things: make a difference in the lives of women throughout USF and the community. And they do this by promoting and supporting education, research, and many other endeavors, all to support women. I'd like to give a special shout out to Angel Williams, who's up on the stage right now, because she serves on our executive committee as our mentoring chair, and she's one of over 350 women who are helping to make an amazing impact. So thanks, Angel.
Congratulations.
Big thanks to everyone who organized today. We're just going to take maybe 3 to 5 minutes just to share a little bit of information. So members of WLP, they can create bonds with students and faculty members and each other, all while helping to develop the potential of women. This group has provided over $3 million worth of scholarships and faculty awards to many individuals throughout all 3 campuses of USF. There was a quote that was shared with me today, and I wanted to share it with you all today. Every woman's success should be an inspiration to another. We're stronger when we are supporting each other, by Serena Williams. And I just think that that is truly what the identity of Women in Leadership and Philanthropy does. We wanted to share a small infographic. One more, sorry. So this is an infographic in a nutshell. It really tells you what WLP does. So we have provided over 67 scholarships. We are providing 8 faculty research awards. We have 102 awards. We have over 53 grants, and on an annual basis, we give out $265,000 in support. So again, big thanks to those of you in the room who are members, and I'll turn it over to my counterpart, Nevina, to share a little bit more information.
Thank you, Lauren. So I also would like to recognize 2 influential WP Sarasota founding and life members, respectively, Dr. Neela Jain, Dr. Jody McBrien, and then also Dr. Mona Jain as well. We are thankful for their investments in our program and hope to continue even past their lifetimes to make an impact in the Sarasota community as well. So WLP was formed. 4 members create bonds with students, faculty, and each other, and in the process help develop the next generation of leaders. So we would not exist without the support of our members and donors, and many of you are here, including the Associate Dean of the Honors College, Kaylin Lanier, a new member of WLP. And we ask you to continue investing in the success of our students and faculty, especially the USF Sarasota students. And we invite you to make a gift to the WLP Sarasota Manatee Scholarship so that we can increase the impact we're making on this campus as well. Also, we have an upcoming event on May 10th. Please mark your calendars at the same location at 5:30. We will be hosting a healthcare discussion, and the event is going to be hosted by Dr. Neela Jain. So mark your calendars, and it's going to be Women in Healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quiet.
Thank you guys once again for breakfast. We really appreciated it. And thank you for all that you do. All right, Caitlin might be the most popular person in the room right now.
So we have our raffle winners. The first is our little beach chair, USF beach chair and umbrella. And that goes to Jennifer Bushinger Ortiz. And then next, 2 tickets to Brunch on the Bay, and that goes to Chris Fowler.
2 wonderful not-for-profits. Do you want to give it to Chris? Okay, well, they're already seated up here, our fabulous next panel, so I'm going to quickly read. Okay, while you're sitting, you're not coming up to the stage, but I just want to introduce each of them briefly because they all have amazing careers. So Brandy Daly, after an illustrious career in the CIA and at various other household names, Brandy went on to start her own company that was recently sold. If you remember, we recognized her last year, and the company she's currently working for had the IPO. So last year at the summit, if you were here, we recognized Brandy Daly. One of the many quotes she likes is, "We need to accept that we won't always make the right decisions, that will screw up royally, sometimes understanding that failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of the success." And that's from Ariana Huffington. Tarnisha, when she isn't doing her day job as a marketing director for Ducon Construction Company, she founded Minnesota Black Chamber. Her inspirational quote is from the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King. "If I can help someone as I pass along, if I can cheer someone on with a word or a song, if I can show someone he or she is traveling wrong, then my living will not be in vain." And last but certainly not least is Angel Williams. She embodies all things good and works tirelessly to help her clients give back to the communities and causes they find dear to their hearts. She is living her best life, and her favorite quote showcases that. "Working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion." So thank you. And you might notice that one of our panelists, Dr. Joni Jones, is unfortunately, she had a death in the family, so unfortunately she won't be with us, but just wanted to recognize her and her wonderfulness, and she's in the program, so you can read a little bit about her and wish her and her family all the best. Cindy Fernelli is our esteemed moderator for this one, and I'm going to pass it over to you. So
Thank you, Beth, and thank you to my fellow panelists, and thanks to all of you for being here. It's very exciting to be celebrating the 113th International Women's Day. I had no idea it was that old, but I looked it up. So I guess on the one hand, it's great that we've been doing this for 113 years. I guess on the other hand, it's a little depressing that we have to have a special day dedicated to us, but indeed we do. And I also want to thank not only Beth, but the other organizers, including USF and Gulfside. So thanks to all of you. So the title of our panel today is Women in Business and Leadership. I think, and if it were up to me and I was queen of the world, I would have changed it to Fierce Females Succeeding in a Man's World. So that's going to be our focus, because I've got a great panel of fierce women who are very successful, each in their own way, and so we're going to learn about their successes and what they've learned along the way. Some of the things that we heard from our other panelists, whether it was Chantel talking about how when she discovered that she was pregnant in high school, her teachers shamed her and made her feel less than, which is a terrible story. And so I was so proud of her for going forth and accomplishing and succeeding. We also heard from both Beth and Dr. Holbrook about what it's like to be in a man's world. And it seems that there are so often unseen or unheard rules that women are forced to adhere to. We might not know what they are, or also there are people telling us what we should do, and in my mind, perhaps more alarmingly, what we shouldn't do. And so there's these unnecessary barriers placed upon us, whether they're spoken or unspoken. And my three panelists, Brandy, Angel, and Tarnisha, have all not listened to those voices, whether they were spoken or unspoken. So it's exciting to see the success that they've had and not being discouraged by those voices. And they don't, as we also heard, have to be men's voices. Oftentimes they're women's voices, or as we heard from Lisa, sometimes they're our own voices. So we need to break out of that. So I'm going to start, and what I would like to do is hear from each of you about those biases or those voices that you've heard, those people telling you you either can't do something or you have to do something a certain way. So Brandy, let's start with you.
Sure. So I think my entire career, oh, somebody's calling in.
It's one of those voices.
I didn't know we were taking calling questions. That's great. No, I think going back to your question, entire career, I studied engineering and systems engineering, and I'm old. And so when I started, there were like no women who were studying engineering. So I was one of the only females in my class. And I didn't really think a lot of it, I think, back then. But when I went into the working world, I realized very quickly that there were not a lot of people that looked like me, nor there were a lot of bosses that looked like me. And so I think a lot of times I was asked, like, are you going to be on the technical side and stay on the technical side, or do you want to go more to like the project management side where a lot of the other females are in the project management side? And I resisted the urge really to pick a side. And I kind of, I guess, beat it to my own drum and really trusted my gut into what I thought was best for me, even at times when people said, you should really take this job, or you should really go do this. And I said, I really think that, starting my own company, for example, was something that I thought I could have absolutely stayed. I was at Amazon at the time, and I started with Amazon when we were in a very small group. We could all fit in a boardroom, so very early days, and had climbed the ladder pretty well there, and so had a really good space for myself to be very comfortable. And I said, you know what, I'm going to really go venture out and do what I think is right for me and really be more engaged with the customer and start a company. I can always go find a job somewhere. I can always go work for a Google or Microsoft or whatever it is, but I'm never really going to always have the opportunity to go try and do something outside the box. And so that, to me, I was always like, I'm going to bet on myself, and I'm always going to do what I think is right in my gut for what I think is the right path for me. And so I would say, picking a path for yourself that you think is right for you and inspires you and that you're passionate about. Because if you're passionate about it, it seems a lot less like work and a lot more like fun, right? And how, you can make a career for yourself in a way that is something that's true to yourself, as well as something that not only inspires you, but can help inspire other people as well. So,
great, thank you. Tarnisha, I'm going to turn to you next. Talk to us about some of the biases that you've encountered and how you've overcome those.
So yes, first I would have to just start from the chamber standpoint. Starting a Black Chamber of Commerce here in the area that had not been done before. We went out and we surveyed the land to see if that was something that we would be successful at, and getting a lot of pushback, not only from the African American community, but abroad. And basically the notions of why is there a need, why are you separating, why are you continuing to separate? But again, it was definitely evident when we have all the other race and just the dynamics of those individuals having opportunities at the same rate as our counterparts. It was definitely a need. So just hearing the voice from different people, we understood that that was going to be a challenge, but we persevered and pushed through it. So that created that space for those individuals to then climb the ladder themselves and have procurement opportunities.
Right, thank you. And then Angel, same question to you.
So I would say for me, I started in the sports industry as an executive director for a professional athlete foundation. And most people know the sports field or arena is male dominant. And so a lot of individuals, from the agents to the leadership, the team owners, not necessarily questioned, but they didn't necessarily was openly available to have conversations with me. And it took time through experience, consistency, persistence, to really earn a seat at the table to have those conversations. And I would just say for me, it was not only was I following my passion, but it was also being consistent in the work that I'm doing to have the education and the knowledge to back it up, because it was more than just a nonprofit organization or just a professional athlete giving back to the community. It was about generational impact in communities. And so that's what I wanted them to understand. And so I would say through the consistent work and not being deterred by so many males in the industry allowed me to be where I'm at today.
So Tarnisha, I will come back to you because I want to hear more about the Minnesota Black Chamber, but I also want to touch on your prior career to that, which was in construction, which is very male-dominated. I'm guessing, just like Angel and Brandy heard from their male counterparts, that this isn't a place for women. Tell us about some of the leadership tactics that you developed in order to make your voice heard, and whether it was your, I don't know if you got to hear Lisa talk about your fast brain or your slow brain. I'm guessing some of your fast brain might have kicked in, and some of that anger may have come forward. So what are some of the tactics that you developed to make sure that you were heard and not pushed aside?
So great question. I would have to start with, it's my current role now. I'm working in that space, and with that, it's a lot of you're cute, seen and not heard, but you have, as Angel mentioned, the consistency, understanding you may be good looking, but if you have the talent, you have the determination, and that you also can back all of that up with the knowledge and the skill set, and always being able to learn. I think it provides a space for the individuals that are in the room to help you grow. And then also being a mom, being a woman, I think it helps with being able to pivot, upon a pivot, right? So in that industry, you have to pivot, you have to be on your A game, and you have to know your craft. Not only that, but you have to be knowledgeable enough to be able to articulate to an owner, to be able to articulate to a subcontractor, and being able to say, no, this is what I mean, and I mean what I say, with a nice tone, but a forceful way of doing it. And I think we do that as moms, being able to emphasize, I meant what I said, and this is how this is gonna go, right? And I do that with a smile. But it's those instances, I think, it prepares you, but also gives you that credibility amongst your colleagues, and just allowing them to allow you the growth, and then allow them to learn from you as well.
I'm going to pivot a little bit because I do know that all of us are on the panel are mothers. Some of us are grandmothers. I too am, Tarnisha. So I'm just curious, as you're raising, we've got sons and daughters, as you're raising children in this environment, what would you have them know? So our first panel, the question was, what would you have told your younger self? What are you telling your children about how to succeed in today's environment, whether it's the work environment or the social environment? So I haven't started with you yet, Angel, so I'll throw that to you first.
I would say believe in yourself and know that you belong. I think oftentimes as women, especially women of color, we question whether or not we belong. And so I think the most important thing is to believe in yourself always. There will always be a critic, whether it's good, bad, or just something to say. Someone's going to say something. And I like to use that as if they are not talking, then you're not doing something good. So believe in yourself and that you belong.
Brandy?
So I have an 18-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son, and it's funny you asked that because I just had this conversation with my daughter the other day because she said, "Mom, you are harder on me than you are on my brother." And I said, "You are absolutely right. I am harder on you because I think that I want to prepare you for what it's like in the working world, for when you're going to go to college in the fall and after college, because you do, unfortunately, it's still today, have to work harder than your male counterparts. It's the truth, right? Especially in male-dominated professions. And I want you to be prepared for understanding that sometimes things just aren't fair, right? And so because things aren't fair, you have to know how to overcome them. You have to know how to set yourself up to be able to accept criticism, to be able to rebound, because I will say probably the most the thing I identified with, especially having a company and starting a company, and man, it's hard. Like the women who were up here earlier that started a company, I know it's hard, is I liken it to a boxing match, right? And there's 12 rounds, and whoever's left standing there at the end is the winner, right? Because you're going to get knocked down so many times when you are starting a company and you're being an entrepreneur, or even in jobs that you're growing through in your career and making it up the corporate ladder. But really hard work does pay off in the end, right? And so working hard, I instill that a lot in my daughter and son. But that understanding that life isn't fair, it's going to throw you things, and how do you adapt and overcome them in a way that's going to be beneficial to you in the end, and how you react to situations. So,
And Tarnisha, same question to you.
So I have a 25-year-old and I have an 11-year-old, so I have good space between. So I can talk to you from the 25-year-old side. That conversation is like this. Hey, put your big girl panties on. You have to do this for yourself and for your child. If anything happens to me, I need to be able to be confident if I leave this world that you can sustain yourself on your own. So that's the conversation that I have with her. But along that same lens, I also talk to her about mistakes and being able to pivot. It's okay to make that mistake. It's okay to have struggles, but how do you learn and glean and then thrive after that? So that's the conversation that I have with Amaya. And just knowing the fact that I always am surrounding her with other like-minded women, I think is key, so that she not only sees it from her mom's side, but from people around her. It's more apt that they listen to the noise from the outside versus right there in their home. So that's something that I think I definitely leave for them or for her. For my youngest, I want her to know that, and I'm speaking from a lens as if I'm not here, and I think that's the part that we have to prepare for, is when I'm gone, I want you to be sustainable. And so for her, I want her to be able to stand and know that she is doing the right thing, trusting her inner spirit, trusting her guide, the principles that she was given in order to make a way for herself. But not only that, but understanding being authentic and true to you and your people.
It's a tall order for an 11-year-old, but an important,
I think she can do it.
Important lesson. So I want to stick with the children for just a minute. And as a side note, part of the theme for this year's International Women's Day is Digital, Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. And so, Brandy, you've done a lot of work in digital space and cybersecurity and cyber safety. Tell us a little bit about the challenges that women and children in particular face in this cyber world that we're in. Any tips that you would give us, both as parents and as users ourselves?
Well, there's a lot of ground to cover there, right? But I would say in general, cyber safety, especially for young girls, so important. I really believe in Life 360 and knowing, that I can know at least if, where my kids are and that they're safe, especially as they go off to college. But I also think there's so few women in cyber and in cloud and technical areas. And so I like to say, like, pay it forward, right? So if you have the opportunity to help others, and I help mentor a lot of other women founders or women in business, and how do they start their own companies, become an entrepreneur, be authentic to yourself as far as, like, you know, what is it that you really want to do? A lot of women actually are deterred around management level to not want to go forward in their careers, and actually at that point decide to stay home. And many of them are actually in the IT world. So how do we help that that generation or that level of management of women to understand that there's a path for them in cyber and cloud, and working with a lot of them to determine how to create those paths for themselves that may not be readily available through, like, the corporate world. So, you know, I firmly believe if there's not a path that you find, like, in a standard way, create the path for yourself. And so I talk a lot about that with young girls, and talk a lot about that with women in the corporate world of, like, how do we create this path? What does it look like? How do we get there? How do you build it, etc.?
So when I was coming up through my career, I'll go ahead and name the company, at Bank of America, I did some leadership training, and one of the big takeaways that I was given is that in order to succeed, I needed to learn to let others think that my good idea was their idea, that was the quickest way to success. And by others, it was usually a male that was my supervisor. And so, Angel, in your profession, you are surrounded by big personalities, and as you mentioned, a lot of them are male, very successful in their careers. So how do you work with those people and get them to accept your ideas? Is it by letting them think it's their idea, or has it gotten better and you're able to present an idea as your own and have it accepted?
So it is definitely better. I think from the CEO standpoint. So now being the founder of my company, I'm more on the advisory side. So as a philanthropic advisor, I think I've shifted my mindset to know right away, like, you came to me for advice. And so it's not as hard to now get them to accept my idea. It's really listening to their philanthropic goals and helping them create a strategy around it. And so I think the consistent part of what I do is, one, help them understand that we are here to provide the advice and the strategy to what they need. And so being consistent, so telling them what it is that they need, creating a strategy, and then helping them execute in a professional way. It keeps me grounded, but it also keeps me along the path to get them to achieve their goals.
So, Tarnisha, you mentioned in your opening that you got a lot of pushback when you went to go create the Minnesota Black Chamber. Same question to you through that lens. How did you bring people along to seeing your point of view? Did you let them think it was their idea, or being true to yourself, as you just mentioned, and helping them see the way?
So two different things for me. Collaboration is big. So I think in a collaborative world or space, it creates everyone to toss out ideas, and I think it becomes a more winnable goal and an attainable goal for us all to achieve. So that's one space, I think. So yes, that's helpful, and then polishing it along the way. So I do a lot of community engagements, and with that said, when we're sitting down and we're trying to get to that goal that Angel mentioned, it has to be polished in a way so that we're all, really bought in and getting to that end goal. So that's one lens. But on the opposite end, you have to really look at it from the holistic view of, if it was attainable, why wasn't it done? So therefore, we have to be able to pivot. And I go back to that pivot word. We'll launch it, and it's okay for that person to birth it, but to bring it to to fruition and then have it sustainable and then growing and then from years and years to come. That legacy piece, I think, is key. So yes, you have to stand firm on what you believe and understanding, and I'm a true believer. I love the Lord, and I'll put that out there, so sorry if anyone's offended, but I felt very led to start that. So I didn't waver from that. I understood what my mission was and what the goal was, and then it's up to us to stretch it out to make it sustainable and attainable, and then for that legacy piece for our kids to grow.
Yeah, you used the word collaboration. I'm looking at our earlier panelists, and I'm sorry I don't have your names at my fingertips, but you gave the African proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that's a way to sum up collaboration. I love that too. I wrote it down. That's going to be my new favorite quote. So thank you, ladies. Before I turn away, though, Tarnisha, also talk to us about where you are now. You talked to us about the struggles of creating the Black Chamber. What are the goals now? Where are you? Give us where you are in the journey right now.
So currently, we are working with a great team and a great partner like USF. We're helping the new college or the student center that's being built, working with that team to help ensure that members are having afforded the opportunity to procure on that project so that the dollar is circulated right here in our community. We continue to make efforts with Nat and Gaines, working with the Sarasota EDC, along with the Bradenton, the city of Bradenton and the Manatee County government, the school districts, as well as the Civic Center as well. We're continuing to just expand the threshold of our members. We started out with obviously $2,500 as being the base of what our members were actually procuring through government contracts. We're now over $1.5 million. So that's something that I am so grateful for and looking for more to come. We've hosted the Southeast Regional Black Chamber of Commerce event where we brought in delegates from all across the world. So just from that lens, I think it's been so a testament to the hard work and the groundwork and along with the grassroots efforts that have taken place. And now we're thinking more regional and long term. So that's where we are now.
I'm just curious, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head. You know, some of these questions have not been practiced, so I'm kind of putting them on the spot. Sorry.
They have not.
But you guys can handle it. Are there other Black chambers throughout the country, and are you in contact with them?
Absolutely. We have the Tallahassee, the Capital Day that's coming up on the 27th here, and that's for the State of Florida Black Chamber of Commerce's presidents and their delegates will join us in the Capitol for advocacy there. I actually serve on the National Black Chamber Board out of Washington, D.C. So across the United States, across the world, we do have that footprint of a Black Chamber of Commerce. It's from the roots of our African diaspora, so that is across the globe.
So there's that collaboration. Again.
Collaboration.
So, Angel, I mentioned how all of us are parents. I believe you're the newest parent, right? You have a 2-year-old, I believe you told me. How are you finding time management? We all have busy careers, which can be a full-time job. We heard earlier from our panelist when she started her own business, her own restaurant, she felt guilty that she didn't have time for her children. I'll start with you, but I want to hear from the others too. How is the time management and any tips you want to share with us?
So I can say I'm getting better. Every day is a challenge. Definitely a shout out to the executive director of WLP because we've been at meetings where I get tips from them. But I would say the balance in being authentic. So I've always worked in this male-dominant career. I'm about 15 years in right now and 7 years in my own company. And I would say I've always kept personal and professional separate. And so now what I've shifted to is being authentic and sharing a little bit of my personal life, especially if my son is jumping in a Zoom call with a client and I can't really, hide him at that point. But so the authenticity and then patience and just, accepting that I am human and that this is a part of a work-life balance that I never expected or really planned it out for as a business owner. And so sharing information with my clientele is helping me. It's also taking a lot of weight off my shoulders that I didn't realize I was carrying. And so for me, I would say the best thing right now is being authentic with my clients. And if I cannot do it, so the example I gave with talking to Lauren, my son was sick, so he entered preschool in October, and we went through about 3 months of sick. And it was like every other week. And so I really did not know how to embrace that. That was very new for me. It was definitely unexpected. And as I talked to other moms and clients, I realized that that was normal. And I still can't accept it, but I am now more authentic to understanding that things are going to happen that are going to be out of my control, and I cannot cover it up. So that's how I'm managing now, and I don't have any tips right now.
Well, that was a good tip. Brandy, what about you?
I would say the mom guilt is real. At different points in your career, you realize you're not going to be able to give 100% to everything, right? So at some points, your career is going to have to take a forefront. Sometimes the mom piece is going to have to take a forefront. And so just trying to figure out, how do you balance what pieces need you at what time? I thought my kids would need me a lot more when they're younger, but it actually turns out as they get older, they actually need you a lot more. And they really pay attention to what you're doing. I think be careful, I guess, of what you say and what you do as they get older, because they could use it against you, but also they definitely are paying attention to all the things that you're doing much more so than what you realize. And I think I hear a lot more, hey, Mom, get off your phone, or you're not being present. And so I'm really, really trying hard now to be a lot more present and be off my phone. And I will say, to that extent, I actually just stepped down from my CEO position as a public company about a week and a half ago, because I only have, both kids are actually going to college this year, and I realize I really have very limited time with them. So I'm going to take the rest of this year and take a break, and then maybe pick it back up next year. And I actually told all the boards I'm not going to do them either. So I'm really going to spend some time with my kids and my husband, and hopefully they still like me.
Tarnisha, before I turn to you for the same question, when you said that you thought that it was going to be harder when they were little and more difficult or less difficult when they're older, somebody told me early on, the bigger the kid, the bigger the potential trouble they can get into. So I think that's true. So Tarnisha, same thing about time management and how you deal with being a mother and an entrepreneur and a successful businesswoman.
So with all of that, I ask and pray for grace, because I tell my oldest, you are a guinea pig. And so I hope to get it better and right, understanding I'm going to make mistakes. I'm human too, but I'm striving to be the best mom that I can possibly be. I believe also just the fact that I have to be fulfilled in what I'm doing, and I have to have that same passion and that same understanding with my kids. So the understanding is, I think, is reciprocal on both ends. But also not only that, but understanding that I want to be fierce. I want to be in that place where I'm feeling the best me, and I have to figure out what all those buckets look like, and understanding what's priority. I think you mentioned there, what's priority today may not be priority tomorrow, and being able to pivot again, I think is important, but also to understand the grace in all of this. We're only human. We're raising kids just like our mom and our dad did, so it's okay to make mistakes, but I also want to make sure I apologize for the mistakes, and them seeing me being vulnerable and understanding that, okay, she's not Superwoman. She can't do all this. And if I say no, I can't, Or if I have to say, you know, I have a client to meet with, I want Raina or Amaya to understand why I'm doing this. This is a sacrifice for us in the long run, and this is what we have to do up front. So sacrifices sometimes are good, and sacrifices sometimes are bad, but I am present when I'm with my kids, and especially that grandbaby. Yes, I love it. That's the best place, so I'll tell you that to prepare you for that. Being a grandparent is the absolute best place to be in. Do you agree?
I do, although I'll tell you all a secret, not to make it about myself, but I have an 18-month-old grandbaby, a grandson, whom I've not met in person because he lives with my son and daughter-in-law in Beijing, China. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to go spend a month with them.
That's
so I'll
it.
get back to you, but I know I just get those fat little cheeks and those fat little legs and just kiss on him.
Best thing ever. So just to sum it up, just understanding that I have to be able to be transparent with my kids. I have to be transparent also with my clients, my boss, and not having that mom guilt. I'm not going to apologize for being a great mom. I only get one opportunity at being the best mom that I can be. I'm not going to gamble on that. I'll gamble on a job. I'll gamble on some nails or some hair, but I'm not going to gamble on being the best mom. I just don't get that back. So that's my, I guess, my advice or just suggestions, just being able to be authentic and being able to say, no, I have to be to pick up my daughter. I'm not going to have a babysitter pick her up. I want to be there to see and to hear her about her day. And she knows that I'm going to always be there. And if mommy can't be there, it's a good reason why.
Yeah, I think for younger women especially, nobody teaches us, or nobody taught me, that you need to ask for what you need. The answer might be no. Like if you say, I need to, I've got a big project, but I want to go see my son play soccer. Usually the answer is like, okay, as long as you get your work done, go ahead. So, but nobody teaches you to ask for that. So if you haven't learned that lesson, those of us, I think we can probably all still learn that lesson.
Absolutely.
But if you're
I
younger,
was just going to
for
say
sure.
that also, don't be afraid to turn down jobs, right, or opportunities, right? I will say early in my career, well, not early, but I was offered like a partnership position in a firm, but they're like, but you're not going to see your kids for 3 months, 6 months at a time because you're going to be traveling, you're going to be working. So you need to make sure that you've got things set up at home, whether your husband stays home or you've got a full-time nanny, because this is what the job requires. And so saying no to those jobs because understanding what's important to you. Is it the job? Is it the family? Is it the kids? For me, it was my family. And so I said no. And it was hard at the time to make that decision because I knew I was going to take a setback in my career. But ultimately, the best thing that happened, because I obviously got time with my kids that I never would have gotten, right? So don't be afraid to, what you think might be a setback might be something that is much more rewarding in the long run from a personal perspective.
I think that's healthy to be able to say that, and then for your kids to see that you made a sacrifice, because I think it sets them up to make those same moves and understand the value of what we've done. And that legacy piece, I believe, is when, especially for my 25-year-old, she wants to still party. She still wants to do all those things. She has like 3 things going on. She's an entrepreneur or an influencer, and being able to listen and not give advice until she's done with that process. It's really hard, but I know I needed that same thing. I needed someone to listen to me, and then I knew I needed to ask for that grace. So always being able to extend grace, but also have it in that emotional bank account that I can extend and I can withdraw that grace when needed.
I'm looking, how are we on time? Okay, how much time do we have? Because I got a bunch more questions that you guys don't know about.
Right.
Okay, very good. So one thing that we've heard theme throughout the morning, and it's kind of contradictory, is the role that men play in our lives. So we've heard on the one hand that women can be very competitive and we can hold other women down. We've also heard, though, that we have to struggle sometimes to get the acknowledgement and the recognition that men get, it seems, more easily. So I'm curious for each of you, and I'll start with you, Angel. Have you had male mentors?
I have. And so I would say one of my great-grandfathers who inspired me early on. And so as an entrepreneur in the early 40s, as a business owner, as a community activist, and a family man in which my great-grandma is 107 today.
Oh, happy birthday.
So my great-grandfather inspired me, and so I think his sacrifices allowed me to feel comfortable to have success or support from males early on. Also, early on in my career as a young executive director, a lot of women were not nice. And so the balance to that was my mentors that I received like in high school or early collegiate career allowed me to continue to look at them for allyship and support as opposed to some women. And so, yes, I've had a lot of male mentors and a lot of male guidance along the way, and I think that keeps me balanced while working in a male-dominant industry. Even as I shifted in the last few years into the financial space, as a philanthropic advisor, I think that it's still male-dominant. And in addition to that, the male mentors and supporters that I have allow me to just be firm on what I say and be brief. And so not talk as a nurturing woman or not talk with so much feelings and passion that I have, to talk in a different way so that they can understand my language. So yes.
Tornisha?
Same here. We women sometimes are really catty. So it makes it hard for me, my personality. I'm a let's get it done. I don't need a whole lot. And so I have drawn to men as mentors, as well as having, from a spiritual standpoint, spiritual advisors and people that pour into me as a woman, you know, as a mother and as a person that is in the community. So just to say, yes, I have been able to learn from men and having mentors. For one is Ernie DeBose, who's the owner of Ducon. And just, he has a UF degree in construction in the United States of America. UF is one of the top construction programs. So with that, I've been able to learn from him at a faster pace without going back to get a 4-year degree in construction. So understanding that you have to utilize your assets and your resources in order to get where you need to go. Again, it just provides you with that fast pace. And as Angel said, you know, sometimes we like to go through all of the details and all of those things. It's important to pay attention to detail, don't get me wrong, but also just that quick, 10 minutes, let me give you what I need or what you need, and then I'm gone. So it helps me in my day-to-day operations to provide that 10 minutes of what I should be doing and learning from really quickly.
Randy?
I wish I had a better answer for this one, but I think because I've always been like a little bit of a rebel, trailblazer, I don't know what you want to call it, but like I actually started working for one of my first jobs out of college. I worked for President Clinton on Y2K, which was the start of cyber before they actually called it cyber. And interesting enough, we actually just did a filming for it. They're doing a documentary. It's going to come out on HBO Max at the end of this year. So I don't know if I'm going to make the movie, but we'll see. We did a whole day of like filming, which was cool. But because it was new, there weren't mentors, if you will, around like cyber companies. And then after cyber, I really pivoted and started the beginning of like Amazon, and there really wasn't mentors in cloud, if you will, because I was starting cloud, and I would go to people and say, hey, I'm from Amazon, and they're like, I don't want to buy any books from you. And I'm like, I'm not selling books. I'm here to talk about the cloud, right? And then, starting your own company, and I started my own company in cyber and cloud, nobody was doing that yet, right? And so I was like one of the first ones, and there's very few women who start IT companies, very few women who try and raise money around financial companies that I just took IPO and was able to raise like $230 million in like 3 days, right? So I think I'd love to say that there was mentors along the way that I could say, yes, this was my mentor when I was trying to understand how to make it in the cloud world or the cyber world or the financial world. But unfortunately, I think I was so early to those markets and really setting the path, if you will. There wasn't mentors, if you will, along the way.
Like 2 then? You
Oh
look
my
great,
God.
honey.
Thank you. I guess good genes, but when I did the Y2K project, I really was right out of school, and I think I got the job because nobody else wanted the job. Because I reported to a general first thing in the morning, 5 a.m., and then again at 7 p.m. at night. So 5 a.m. and he would tell me what he wanted that day. I would relay to all the technical team what we needed to do. 7 o'clock that day, I had to show him exactly what we did. And I would sleep there on cots. We had pagers back in the day when you had pagers. So I think nobody wanted to have that kind of job where, and I was, right out of college, I wanted to prove myself, right? So I'm like, oh, this is great. I didn't have a family or kids at the time. So, it was really, really early days. So I had a lot of success early, which I think helped me, and a lot of responsibility, if you will, early on, which helped. But I wish I had more mentors. I would say I have really good peers who, if I have questions or how did you do this, I can call them and bounce ideas. But I would say that there wasn't a lot of other people who had done that I could call and ask for help or advice.
So, Brandy, you just mentioned you had early successes.
Mm-hmm.
You're all fierce entrepreneurs, and we often read and hear that sometimes growth comes from failure as opposed to success. So I'm curious if the three of you would briefly, because I think I'm getting the 5-minute warning, if you would each briefly tell me of not failure, but a mistake or a hurdle or a struggle that you had to overcome and how you learned from that. So I'll start with you, Tarnisha.
So I would have to first start off by when I initially started with presenting the Black Chamber of Commerce. I was actually, prior to that, I was homeless, and we had to make ends meet by going on assistance, and being in that place was a place where I believe the chamber was birthed. It allowed the opportunity for that to actually nurture and be on fertile grounds. And it was in that dark place that God spoke to me and just clearly gave me the path and the vision of how to execute and how to move the chamber forward. And so that was always, I think, will be my pivotal moment of hearing, being at a dark place, but being able to hear, being silent, not having all the resources, and having to be able to rely on others to help me through a process. So often, I was giving to other people, and I found myself needing to have that same support, and just being accepting of that support. So that would be something that I had to, struggle with, but then have to bounce back from. And then after that, we got up, we got going. Wasn't the best place, but I knew it was a place where I needed to be in. And then from there, we founded the chamber, and the rest is history.
That's great. Angel?
So I would say I was finishing an internship, and I was studying to be a lawyer. And I knew I wanted to do something a little bit more in the community and something more impactful. I just didn't know what that looked like yet. And so I ended my internship, and I received a job offer to still work in the district attorney office at the time in Atlanta. And 2 other attorneys offered me a position. I took one of the positions and not the position at the district attorney office. And 30 days later, I was laid off. And they said they eliminated the position. And I was studying for my LSAT, and I was still in Atlanta, but I had just graduated. So it was like, I really don't want to go home right now because this wasn't my plan. And so I shifted. It took me about 6 months, but that's where I started doing some homework and research on nonprofits in the public administration space. And I went off to get my master's in public administration. And now I'm doing what I love. And so nonprofit space and community impact was birthed out of that. But I would say the shift and the obstacle allowed me to get here, because I don't know how happy I would have been as a lawyer. And so I'm grateful for the job loss that was very devastating at the time because it was a big time offer. And so to be at a firm for 30 days on a path of something you dreamed about since 7 was very hard. But being able to overcome that and be where I'm at today is a blessing.
And Brandy?
I've had a lot of failures, so we would be here for a very long time. But I do think too, and gosh, that's a session on itself, right? But to both of your points, I think each of us probably has a pivotal point in your life where you kind of say, all right, like I have to kind of figure it out, right? You got to stand on your own 2 feet and figure it out. For me, that actually happened at 12. Very personal to me. My parents decided that they were going to try and give me up to an orphanage. It's not a story I've told very much. The orphanage, unfortunately, was full, so they were stuck with me until about 16, where I was then on my own, and my parents moved to Virginia, and I was in Arizona. I grew up in Arizona. So my senior year of high school I was really on my own, so I had to figure it out, right? And I think that being on your own, trying to figure out how you're going to eat, how you're going to go to school, how you're going to, live, I think really taught me like hard work, perseverance, and what is it like? Nobody's going to help you. You have to figure it out, and if you just really work hard, it will all work itself out, if you will. So.
Well, I'm going to close by just summarizing the theme, I think, of the panel that we heard, which is fierce, pivotal, authentic, and collaborative. So please join me in thanking Carnisha, Angel, and Brandy.
Thank you all. We have a gift behind your chair for each of you. And Cindy, we have something. Along with the theme, I feel bad because Cindy Fernelli is my dear, dear friend. And I did not do a great introduction to you and all of your amazingness. So thank you so much. And I apologize. I got frazzled on my notes and I messed up. So I'm sorry. But I so appreciate you and all that you are.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you again. Give these ladies a big round of applause. We are on the home stretch, and I believe that I see Maury. Did I see Brooke? Yay, Brooke. Okay, how could I miss you? So as they make their way off the stage, I'll remind you once again of our wonderful event on March 27th, so please feel free to join us at that. I'm personally super excited about this. I've loved all the panelists, but my 9-year-old self, I started swimming when I was 5 competitively for 9 years. So getting to hear Brooke is a dream. Because I did think I was going to go to the Olympics, but Brooke did. So she is a 3-time Olympic gold medalist, beating Janet Evans' 800 freestyle record. As a lifelong swimmer, this is, as I said, super exciting for me. She's also a mom to 2 amazing boys and a philanthropist. Please welcome Brooke Bennett to the stage, along with Maury Newmer. Maury is in her own right an accomplished swimmer and coach, in addition to being USF's advancement director. They're going to do a fireside chat, so thank you, Jay, for making that stage a little more comfortable for them. So welcome them to the stage for me. Brooke, do you need this, or are you going to run her piece from there? Okay, all right.
Oh, thank you. Wow. It's not every day that you get to sit next to a 3-time Olympian, so wow. This is pretty cool.
Thank you.
So I think we're going to start with a little story, a little video.
A little story, a little video to, I guess, kind of just start the conversation. Mm-hmm. And it's just important for me to let everything flow and be very conversational.
Sounds like a plan. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Wow.
So I put that together over the weekend. I can't tell you how many times I cried.
Yeah.
And I'd have to walk away and get back and walk away and come back to it and going, what am I doing? I don't know. And then it just kind of came together. So it was fun putting it together and kind of setting the stage for our conversation.
A lot of peaks and valleys.
Yep.
A lot of successes and failures.
Yep.
A lot of heartbreak. A lot of incredible opportunities. And now you're a parent raising, how old are your boys?
They are 5 and 8, kindergarten and second grade.
So they keep you pretty busy.
It was great. I got to listen to the three ladies up here and kind of hear, and I'm taking all of that information because it's helpful. And I do resonate with, they're kind of in that stage where it's uncool to hug and kiss mommy, but then they're like really loving and affectionate when they know it's just mommy. So I'm learning that. I remember the first day my oldest, we went to school, and he's very affectionate, and the moment he's in trouble and you get on to him, he's apologizing very quickly. Mommy, I'm so sorry. My 5-year-old, on the other hand, is like stonewall. Like, but the first day at school, and he like turned away from me, and he's like, Mom, not in front of my friends. And I'm walking to the car, holding back the tears, and I get in the car, and I know I was going to swim lessons that day, and I'm literally driving to someone's house to teach their baby how to swim crying, and I just go and embrace that baby, and I'm like, people are always like, oh, would you ever have any more? And I'm like, no, 2 boys is great, but teaching swim lessons and then those families calling you and getting to work with all of them, it's like I'm constantly just like, I get that like instinct, and they snuggle up against you even though they're crying a lot of times in swim lessons. But it's like I always have that even when my boys don't want to.
Well, just give it another 10 years and they will be all over you again.
And that's what I hear, like especially like my guy friends, they're like, and I hear their stories of their mom. It's like those boys come back around and they want mommy. That's right. And I'm daddy's girl. And it's always, if I need something, Daddy, I bought this TV and I want to use it with my computer. Can you come over? And so we'll like, the boys are over this weekend. Hey, I'll cook you guys lunch or dinner. And I always have the list for my dad. And you just have to go, but Daddy.
Yeah.
Still got it at almost 43.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. 3-time Olympic gold medalist. The phone is ringing again.
I was going to say, that's not me. Thank God.
Tell us a little bit what it was like to be on that podium and to win those gold medals.
In the moment, it's just like a surreal numbness feeling. You really don't get the opportunity to absorb it all in until much after the fact. I mean, once you finish and complete, the first thing that they come up to you is they give you a piece of paper and you got to sign it because you're going to get drug tested. So, like, yeah, you might have won this, but that's the first thing, right? And then they're kind of shuttling you off, and you have to get ready for the awards. And at the same time, especially in Sydney, when I won the 400, the 800 was my prelims. Some of that was 2 days later, so it was about warming down and taking care of my body, and my coach saying, you need to go here, and I'll pull you when they need you here. And then when you're done peeing in a cup, I need you to go warm down. And in all of those, my family that was there, I mean, they had to stand around and wait until everything's done, and you don't really get to celebrate that until the very end. I know in Sydney it was 11:30, almost 12 o'clock, because of the TV delay and the time and everything like that my family was waiting to see me. But then it was like, here's your bagged dinner. The cafeteria at the Olympic, at where we stayed, the Olympic Village is closed, and that's it. So it is just very much of a whirlwind. And I know for me, standing on the podium, 96 was a lot of emotions with losing my grandfather, but at the same time, I had put up such a wall with him. When he passed, it was a Sunday, and my coach had called my mom, so that was April 28th, and the Olympics were in July. And my coach had called my mom, and they had discussed, and the conversation was, she's fine, do what she needs to do. If she needs to take a couple of days off, she'll be fine. We're on track. And my mom said something to me that night, I remember at dinner, after we were like kind of all home dealing with things, and I just looked at her and I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, Dad would kill me if I missed a swim practice. So it was Monday morning in the water at 5 a.m. So that part was just there weren't a lot of emotions for me. I had closed off big time during that time.
Yeah. You kind of have to. You have to compartmentalize.
Very much so.
Especially when you're dealing at that level.
And I learned to do that at an early age, which I'm finding now as an adult is sometimes not the best. And so I still work through that constantly, even with being a mom and then trying to run my own swim school and then also picking up the opportunity to work with the nonprofit foundation. I have a great boss who has known me since I was 17, and he constantly gets on to me. He's like, you're here, you're doing the job, but if you need something, you need to come forward and you need to ask. So I think, yeah, I was able to do that at 15 and 16 years old, but I'm learning how to realize that that's not okay all the time.
So along with that, what do you think the skills or the qualities that you had at the time, and still have, of course, that set you apart and allowed you to forge that path of greatness?
Well, I think as an athlete, I think everybody just assumes that you come from a line of athletes in your family. In my case, that's not true at all. My grandfather was good in baseball and basketball, but in a time that sports were not looked upon. It wasn't a way to support your family. My great-grandmother, his mom, was like, you're not playing sports. You need to go out and you need to educate yourself and you need to have education to be able to support your family. So he never really got, I think, to fully establish his athletics. My mom got zero of that. My mom is about the least athletic person I know. My dad, not athletic. So I think just for me, I mean, how I got into swimming was my mom and oldest sister moved down. They're from Bloomington, Indiana. And when my mom graduated high school, her and her older sister moved down. And they were living in Florida. And then my grandparents decided to move down. And then I was the second grandchild born, and they were putting a pool in. And my grandfather had lap swam at IU. My grandmother worked at IU, and that was the time that Mark Spitz was training for the Olympic Games. And so my grandfather saw that, and he loved swimming for exercise, and he knew that putting a pool in, that it was very important for his grandchildren to know how to swim. And my three cousins and I are close, and there's a gap between a couple of my other ones, November, May, and August. So the three girls, we were only children for pretty much 12 years. We grew up very close, living like literally on a country block from each other. So we all learned to swim, but I was in. I mean, if I could play hooky from school and tell my mom that I didn't feel good, I knew I could go to my grandparents and swim in the pool all day. So at 3, I had done was swimming, and my grandfather was like, get her swim lessons, get her involved. And so my mom finally did, because she realized that my energy level was through the roof. And I just fell into a sport that I loved. I did synchronized swimming by fault because they needed an extra girl. I hated it. I did do triathlons. I did triathlons up until I was about 12, until I hit a pothole on a road, and I came back to swim practice. And I was pretty banged up, nothing broken or anything like that, but my swimming career was taking off. I had qualified for nationals. And the conversation with my coach was, if you think you're going to be an Olympian and you want to go do a triathlon on a weekend and you fall off your bike and break your arm. So I quit doing triathlons. Funny story, my club where I swim at had a tennis club as well. And I thought, I want to go take tennis lessons. So my mom took me out there on a day that all the kids were practicing the serves. And I said, okay, that sounds cool. And she goes, well, they have to go pick up all those tennis balls. And I'm like, no, they don't. There's some machine that does that. Well, I assume now there is, but back then there wasn't. Right. So she made me sit there and watch all the kids pick up the tennis balls, and I told her I didn't want to do it anymore. So, but there was never anything else. And my parents were ridiculed sometimes because I did so well so young. why don't you let her be a normal kid? Why don't you let her try other sports? Why didn't you ask her if she wanted to do gymnastics? And my mom's like, you go tell her to do gymnastics. You go tell her to do dance or ballet. I was like, no, I wanted to swim. And so I think the passion that I had at that young, and then the work ethic, it enhanced some of my natural ability. I'm hypermobile, double jointed, like through my wrists, ankles, and knees. So I say I'm like a walking mermaid. My friend told me not to make that joke this morning. But I have to. I just loved being in the water, and that's where I wanted to be.
Well, I share that with you. 'Cause
I had to swim this morning before I came down. You know, it's part of my routine.
You mentioned Mark Spitz back in 1972, and most of you all know that Title IX was passed in 1973, and my generation was really the first generation of girls and women to benefit from Title IX. So I was very fortunate to be recruited to swim in college. And then there weren't a ton of scholarships for girls and women. And I'd love to just hear, times have changed, and yet in many ways times haven't really changed. And so I'd love to hear, just your perspective of what your life was like being a girl in sports, and how have you seen the perspective for girls and women in sports today? And that's in everything, because I always think that sports is a microcosm of life, of real life.
Well, I think I agree with you. In a lot of ways, there has been a lot of change and a lot of support for women, but then again, there isn't. And I think that the Title IX needs to get stronger. I think we need to continue supporting women in sports, and that for me, growing up, and I grew up in Plant City, so a little bit of a country girl. And again, I was 14 at my first international competition. The 96 Olympics was between my sophomore and junior year of high school. And that's awkward anyways.
Yeah.
And then you put yourself in the limelight of everything. And this is one thing that I say all the time. I am so glad social media was not around.
Yeah, no,
I have a love-hate for it now. My job requires me to do it for our foundation, which is a little bit easier, but my personal self, it's just like, But I'm so grateful that in order to know about my swimming, my career, my accomplishments, and anything, you either watched the news on regular TV, or you had to get the paper delivered to your driveway, or you went to a paper box. But for me, so I could hide a little bit, and I did hide because I went to a new high school. And so my sophomore year, we had freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. We didn't have seniors. And I transitioned, so I was the last 9th grade junior high, and I was a part of that whole transition into the 4-year high school. So since I was going to a new school, and we were coming in from all angles, there was probably about 75 to 80% of the student body had no idea about me. And the only thing that was said, I remember having geometry, and it was my first class, and one of my friends, we were friends, and he would be, why do you come into class every day with sopping wet hair? Could you just take a shower at night? I'm like, meanwhile, I'm like in the back of my mind, okay, if you only knew that I've been in the pool for 2 hours, So March was trials, and I come back in my high school, I can't hide anymore because it's all over the local news. And then my high school does a huge pep rally. George Steinbrenner was a huge supporter of my career, helped send my coach to one of my world championships. He was at my high school. And so it was great. I come back, and I knew nothing about this. And my mom's coming to school, and she's like, oh, the teachers, I don't know what, she lied to me about something and just said, I got to go talk to your guidance counselor about you missing school and make sure all your work's caught up. And I walk into school, and they walk me out to the courtyard, and my whole class, my whole school is in the courtyard. And I literally looked at my mom, and I turned to leave. I'm like, you didn't tell me they were doing this? And I didn't want it. I didn't want it. I wanted nothing. I wanted to just do my thing. But, okay, so then everybody's like, there were some warm welcomes. There were, and my friend who gave me crap about my hair being wet every day, he's like, why didn't you just tell me you were training to go to the Olympics? Why did it matter? That was my thing. So again, I did stay very, very closed off. But that also came with, after that came out, there was jealousy. There was my car. I ended up not being able to park in student parking lot because my car got keyed like 3 or 4 different times.
Wow.
So I would park in faculty. I was allowed to park in faculty or visitors, and it was told to me, just park wherever you want, but change it up. Great, I'm 16, like I just got, but this is what I'm dealing with. So it was a little bit rocky. I ended up, because of that, I ended up finishing up my senior year early, but I was also going to World Championships. I missed senior prom. I did not walk at my graduation. I was in Europe for 3 weeks, but I didn't walk. And I asked my parents, as an only child, I had to go to my mom and my dad and say, I've been invited to go to Europe, and there's 4 swim meets that I can compete in, and my graduation fell in the middle. So it wasn't like I could miss 1 meet at the beginning or miss 1 meet at the end. It was like smack dab in the middle, so it was all or nothing. And I thought my parents were going to be like, oh, you have to go to graduation. We want to see you walk. And my mom's like, sweetheart, we know you did your school. We know you got your grades. It's a piece of paper. Can you go travel the world? And I did. And I did get to see a lot of the world. So I was like, wow, I did not expect that from my parents. But what I did get from that is, due to social media, and this was back in the MySpace days, there was a girl that I went to high school with, and we kind of were in the same crowd, but she was never very nice to me, never. And I went above and beyond to be nice to her and just befriend her, and for whatever reason, but no, she was not very nice to me. She sent me a letter on MySpace out of the blue and apologized and was like, I really didn't realize until I was older and adult and had kids of my own. She goes, I feel like the only reason why I treated you that way is because I didn't know how to really absorb or relate to everything that you were doing. So it was kind of like a wow moment. Yeah. And it was at the same time when, Plant City and big hair and makeup and all that kind of stuff. And I went to school in a t-shirt and sweatpants or whatever. And I think my friends only saw me in makeup at senior homecoming, maybe 1 or 2 different times. So I think then it was hard. I don't know that women, we embraced athletic women as much. It was very much you needed to look like this, and you needed to start to develop, and then you needed to fall in love with hair and makeup. And I was like, none of that. That's not my world. To where now I see it now, and I look at the swimmers a lot. I mean, obviously, because I'm just a geek when it comes to swimming, and I feel like society has embraced the different body types and women, and being, I do think, even in the business world, we've seen that come forward and then it falls backwards. But I think women in athletics, they've been embraced more for being strong and being independent.
Yeah, we're definitely celebrated in a different way.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about setbacks. I'm sure you've had a few. We all have setbacks.
Yeah.
What do you think it was that helped you get through those setbacks, and how has that made you more resilient as a woman?
Well, I think for me, and so I did qualify for 3 Olympic events and won gold in all 3 of those. In '96, thank you. In 96, I was favored as one of the favorites in the 400 freestyle. That is a sprint for me. So it was a tough one, and my coach and I discussed what our strategy was going to be going into this swim. And so the 400 freestyle is you get some of the girls that swim the 200, and then you get some of the girls that swim the 800, and then we kind of meet in the middle. And some of the girls in the 400 that were better in the 200, you know, their best 200 time was 2 or 3 seconds faster than mine. But they were also 5'11" and 6 feet tall. So I've always been the undersized one. And we had this strategy, and strategy did not work. And I ended up being 4th in the 400. And we take top 2 in each event. And so the 400, again, is always before the 800, how the meet is set up. And I had the 800 coming up a couple of days later. And I got out from the end of the pool to walk over to meet my coach, was probably over to the double doors, and then I would see him and I would go over to the warm down pool, which was probably another 20 steps. And somewhere in that period, and embracing him, I looked at him and I just said, you know, I need to go warm down before we talk. I'm gonna go warm down before we talk. And I just got out and was like, you know, I did, and I think he felt bad, and I know later on, like as our athlete-coach relationship continued with my career, he finally told me he felt guilty for it. But at the time, I didn't blame guilt or anything like that, and I just said, you know, it was a good race, and it just wasn't meant to be, but we had the 800. And so that was a moment between us. But I think the moment of the biggest setback in my career and how it was handled and taught me just to go forward was my mom's reaction. And we had gone, and my mom was there at trials, and we went to dinner as a group. We had like three other my teammates were there, and there wasn't a lot of conversation at dinner. And so we get up to the hotel room, and my mom grabbed my bag, and she just never asked what happened. What did you and Peter talk about? Nothing. Like, she didn't ask any questions. She just took my bag. She goes, I'll unpack my bag. Why don't you take a hot shower, and then I'll braid your hair. And I think at that point, from that setback, just taught me that, you know, things are not always going to fall in your favor, but it's just what you do to get past them. And I'm very much like that now. So my mom kind of comforted me in a way of like just showering, and I loved it when my mom braided my hair. Growing up, I always had really long hair, except a couple of times that I cut it. And my mom did not let me cut my hair until I was like 12. So when I was swimming all those years and going to swim meets, she would always French braid it, and then I would put my swim cap on. So I could take it on and off through the meet and stuff, but that was our thing. So even to this day, I go up and visit with my mom, and I'll sit down and I'll hand her the brush and be like,
yeah, that's awesome.
But it just taught me to kind of figure out what that outlet is. And funny, water is my outlet. So even now in my adult life, like my 5-year-old was actually in trouble yesterday, and I had to FaceTime him, and he told me about it, and I was really like heartbroken. And the only thing I knew to do after getting off of FaceTime and him telling me about his being very disruptive in class, and he got a 1 in his binder, they can get a 1 to a 4, and he's a 3 kid. He's a 3 kid. He gets a 4, and when he gets a 4, Mommy, I got a 4. I'm like, what did your teacher miss today? But he's a 3 kid, so when he got a 1, and he's had maybe 2 this year, when we got a 1, it was like, and he was, you know, got in trouble, and, you know, my outlet and my way to rebound from that and to kind of center myself, I go to the shower, and I sit in the shower with hot water, and I sit in the shower in the hot water until there is no more hot water. And after there's no more hot water, I feel okay. I don't. I just. It's what I do. It's how I do. It's the same thing with dealing with work. Or I've had horrible swim lessons before where kids have tried to bite me. So yeah, that's, you know, I just always find the way to kind of, and I always gravitate back to that. Any hard news that I get, obviously, and I think that started with my grandfather. I went to practice the next day. I always revert to I'm gonna go swim, and when I'm done swimming, I'll be okay.
I like the shower idea.
I try it. Don't stand in it because you're standing there and just sit in the shower. Yeah. Sit. You don't have to wash. You don't need to do your hair. And a lot of times it's not getting the soap in the shower. It's not about getting clean. So it's just sit in the shower, turn the hot water on, and when your hot water heater's done, you're like, oh, I can face this.
You notice that swimming is a very individual sport, and it's not a very social sport because you're not spending a lot of time talking. You got your head in the water, so I'm kind of not surprised that your outlet is going into a shower and just being quiet.
Yes, and I do like that, and I was never the child, and I'm an only child, so again, maybe that plays into why I liked swimming so much. And I'm really hyper and I'm really rambunctious. Like, it was very important for me to get up and swim this morning. If I have to do anything, it's very important for me to exercise. It's my only way of like the ADHD coming calm. Like, just you're good to go. My boys even know it. My boys are like, Mom, do you need to go for a run? I'm like, yeah. You and the dog, you guys sit on the couch. I'll be back. And they know the rules. They know the rules. And we've kind of shifted because my 8-year-old wants a cell phone and all this. So I'm like, okay, the neighbor's right next door. I'll let Miss Colleen know Mommy's going. She'll check in on you. So we're stretching that a little bit for some independence because I'm not ready for him. Mommy, take this video and put it on Instagram. I'm like, how do you even know what that is?
Yeah.
No, we're not taking the video, and I'm not posting it on my Instagram. I'll video you to watch it later, but we're not sharing it on social media.
So talk to me about what you think. You've had probably a number of coaches in your life.
One.
You've had
20
one coach.
years.
That's amazing. So I coached for 21 years, and I love it when I get to see former athletes come and talk to me about, do you remember when you did this or that, or you told me to go in and do this, that, and I don't remember it all. But of course, the athlete remembers. So what do you think it takes to be, in our case here, a good mentor, and a good coach?
Well, and I was very lucky because I think my story of Peter and I and our career, and I chose not to go to college because I didn't feel comfortable changing, and I would have been between 96 and 2000. So it was just a really important time for me to stay where I felt comfortable. Peter always listened. He was, what a crazy Irishman. He always listened, and he always pushed us past what he felt we were capable of. And he would give us swim practices, and I would look at him, and I'm like, what was in your coffee this morning? And I'm looking at him like he had 3 heads.
He stretched you.
Extremely. And we did, and actually I was talking to a swimmer who's swimming for D2 right now. He was on my lifeguard tower on Sunday because he's in training. And he's like, I heard you were an Olympic swimmer. And I'm like, Geraldo, we're supposed to be talking about lifeguard. Watch the water, okay? But we're chatting as I'm going through some of the training with him. And he used this word to me, which is so funny. He goes, were you back in the day when they did a lot of garbage yardage? And I looked at him and I'm like, what, garbage yardage? What do you mean? He goes, yeah, like back in your day. Geraldo, how old are you? 20. I'm like, well, I'm going to be 43, and you need to respect me, and I'm training you, so don't give me back in my day. But then we went into it, and training has changed a lot in swimming, and I think in a lot of sports they do things differently. But if that's what they call it, garbage yardage, my coach and I were the king and queen of that. And my coach has given many presentations in ASCA about our training. Yeah. And, but going back to the question you asked me, what set me apart, it was that. It was doing 100,000 meters a week. Yeah. It was swimming 100 100s on 110, repeating 106 or 107s. So we've done sets and we did yardage, and it was about me looking at him and going, fine. I wouldn't say this, but it was definitely in my head of, I'm going to show you. Because I knew in the back of my mind he thought I was going to fail. Didn't say it, though. I wouldn't say it to him. Funny thing is to my son being disruptive, and what I said to him yesterday is, my coach had pulled our team out because for whatever reason, we were just all having a bad practice, and we're sitting on the side of the pool deck. And when Peter got mad, his Irish accent came out. And then he would use words that we just didn't know what they meant. And he's giving this lecture, and I'm sitting next to two of my teammates, guys older than me, and I'm sitting there very quiet with my head down, just like, okay, wanting him to stop talking so we could just go swim again. Because I wasn't the reason why we were out of the pool. But the two guys next to me had some little comments and snark remarks. And my coach heard it and looked at me and yelled at me and kicked me out. And I tried to say, I don't want to hear it, go. And I was like, whoa, I didn't do anything. So, and that was my son's excuse yesterday. I'm like, oh, don't try to pull this on me, kiddo. And it was the only time I was ever kicked out. Never been kicked out of practice. Never disobeyed him in practice. Never did anything, and he kicked me out. He did come back to me at the end of the day because I had to wait for my mom. And there was we didn't have cell phones then. So my mom had went to go run errands, and then she came back to the pool. And she's like, why are you out? I go, Peter kicked me out. She's like, what did you do? I go, I swear to you, I didn't do a thing. I swear. But we had that relationship. And I would leave the pool so angry with him. Or, oh my God, my arms. And I would go home and I can't pick the plate up because he just destroyed me. He'd go, good job. I'd leave and do good job. And I'd be like, see you in the morning. And then we'd start all over again. So it was just this great dynamic that we had.
Yeah, you were lucky.
Yeah, very.
Very lucky. Well, I know we're running out of time, but I want one last question. What are 3 things that you want to leave the audience with today? As a mother, as a parent, as an athlete, as a businesswoman yourself, 3 things that you'd want to leave the audience with.
Well, I think I am one now with the passing of my grandfather. I am very one to always, and I force it a lot of times, the I love yous and the goodbyes. I did not do that with my grandfather. I was having all of my friends were at the house, and we were having a family dinner the next night, and my mom yelled at me, Mom and Dad are leaving. And I quickly ran over and was like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow, I gotta go. And I bolted to be with my friends. So I think it's very important that even when our worlds get so crazy, and I think we as women wear so many different hats, that I put on a hat and I make pancakes for my kids, and then I drop them off at school, and I take that hat off and I go into work and I become the development manager, and I'm talking to corporations and people about providing money for us. And then as season gears up in May, I'll start teaching swim lessons, and then so it's a million different hats. I choose it. I love it. I choose it. But I think it's important to, no matter what, is always give that indication of a thank you, an I love you, a hug, an embrace.
So I use that, I think, as, parenting and with my boys all the time. And I think, too, like, embrace what you love. I'm a big component of that. I did not think that I would be involved in the nonprofit world. I've only been working with CFY for just over a year. I love it. I really do, and I have a great boss. And it is giving back to youth sports. Just last year, we basically funded about 10,000 children at about $425,000 through youth sports and equipment and travel grants. So that's very near and dear to me, and it kind of goes full circle just because sports seems, again, when we talk about Title IX in sports, if they're cutting in elementary schools and here and there, it's still very important. I think it gives a great foundation to our kids. My boys don't swim competitively. They're going to join Summer League for the first time this summer, but they do jiu-jitsu and wrestling, so we do have them involved. So the work in the foundation is great, and my passion for teaching kids to swim. So in me, I feel very lucky that I can find those passions and that they all kind of somehow at the end of the day, they might be going in 10 different directions, but I can streamline them into one. And then, I think as far as life goes is being kind to ourselves. And I have to stop and remind myself to be kind to me and remember. And a lot of times I don't. A lot of times I don't give myself credit for the accomplishments that I've done, but then I've worked very hard to identify myself as an adult off of the accomplishments that I had as a teenager. And many times I don't do that well. And so I'm training and I go to counseling and I'm working on that as far as being kinder to who I am and not being so hard on myself. So I think that we as women tend to do that more and that we need to remember to do that and give that break to ourselves.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have had a chance to chat with you, and I know our audience. I don't think we have time for questions, but I know Brooke will stick around for a few minutes afterwards. And thank you. Congratulations. Keep it up, and thank you for giving back.
Thank you.
So. All right. Do you want us to stay up here?
It's up to you two. Thank you both, Brooke and Mari, for that incredibly inspiring and heartfelt conversation. We appreciate it. Brooke, we actually have a gift for you. I think Caitlin has it. Yes.
Thank you.
And Mari, we have something for you as well when you come off the stage. Oh, Beth will run over there and get it.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
So it's completely your choice if you'd like to sit up there. We can all stare at you.
No.
So, as Beth said earlier, my name is Jared Motzenbecker. I'm the Director of Wealth Services at Gulfside Wealth, and I am incredibly humbled to be here today in this room with so many amazing, inspiring women. We're going to wrap things up, but before we do, I would like to express my extreme gratitude to Beth Green for all of the hard work she put into the day. Another amazing event. And I'd also like to thank you for all of the hard work you put in every day to make Gulfside Wealth the success it is. So thank you. We'd also like to say another huge thank you to all our panelists, speakers, and everyone else at USF Sarasota Manatee who helped to make today a success. Without you guys, none of this would be possible. Jay, is that for me? Is that a gift for me? Oh, he's your chauffeur. Nice. All right. So some of you know this, but most of you don't. But I am the proud father of a 13-year-old girl who is absolutely amazing. She volunteers at Sarasota Teen Court, and just last week she told me that she wants to attend Columbia Law School, which my wallet is a little afraid of, honestly. But obviously my heart loves it. And I wish she could have been here today because as I sat on each side of the room listening to all the speakers, hearing their stories, and it seemed like everyone had the same recurring themes of fear, faith, resilience, perseverance, and success, I know that she would have loved to be here. But for the sake of all the speakers, I'm glad she wasn't, because she would have peppered you with an endless barrage of questions, and we would have been here till like 5 o'clock. So thank you all very much. The last thing I'd like to do is remind you all to please grab the flyer for the Gulfside Women in Wealth networking event that we'll be hosting on March 27th at SRQ Waterworks. You can register on our website, www.gulfsidewealth.com/events. That link will go live this afternoon. We would love to continue these amazing conversations, continue to build wonderful relationships with all of you and amongst all of you, so we hope we'll see you there. And with that, I will say thank you all very much for taking time out of your day, and we hope to see you next year.